second. I added this on my YouTube page. Just sending invites out. Just bear with me because I don't do very much lives. I do plan on going on a 7-day fast. No food, just water. That's right. Um, for those who don't know, everywhere where you see in the scripture where it says the poor, that is the term of Ebion, Ebionite. You can go and research this for yourself, which is why they told Paul to remember the Ebion, which is in Jerusalem. Your apostles, your 12 apostles were Ebion. It seems what they call Nazarenes or Nazarites themselves. There were three philosophical sects in Jerusalem. You had the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and you had the poor, which is Ebion, the Essenes, the Nazarenes, the Nazarites. What did they believe? What did they follow? All right. Some would also say you had the Zealots also. All right. But these Essenes, these Nazarenes, these Ebions, these Zealots did not, under any circumstance, accept the doctrines of Paul. If one would know that the apostles did not accept the doctrines of Paul, Ebion, Christianity would have no chance at all. But you have things written in there that are false, which a lot of people like to go to and say things like, well, Peter said this about Paul, and that's where they like to go, which was not written by Peter. Okay. The doctrine the only doctrine that we the Essenes really accept that is written by Peter would be things like, where's my book at? The Clementine Homilies. And the reason I got I got a lot more books. The reason I got these books set right here personally is because these are the books I'm gonna be studying out of this doctrine. This is what we accept from Peter. All right. Peace and bless to everybody that's watching. It gives a different Peter, the Apostle Peter, the Ebion Peter, not the Nicaea Council Peter. All right. Although there are some doctrines that is led to believe that Paul may have got to Peter's head at one time, and Peter may have started to teach things that was of Paul's way because he was not able to resist Paul the way that James the Just was. This is why James the Just was the leader that he was, of whom is Jesus Christ, what they like to ignorantly call, or Yeshua's brother. All right. You can see this in Acts chapter 15, that he was head of Jerusalem, the last to speak when Paul was to go inquire of the circumcision. All right. And I ask people this all the time. Are we to follow Paul, or are we to follow the one who Paul had to go inquire of the law, which was James the Just? All right. We even see instances where Paul likes to say things like, I was sent into the Gentiles. But if you go and look in Acts chapter, I believe 15, he was told how Peter told them that by my mouth, I was chosen so that the Gentiles might hear the word by his mouth. You see, one must understand that Israel was chosen to give the law. And by giving the law, the Gentiles were supposed to cleave and hang on to them. We were supposed to teach the Gentiles. It was never supposed to be the Gentiles were supposed to teach us. All right. Stop me when I'm wrong. It was never supposed to be the Gentiles are supposed to teach us. Some scholars also believe when Peter didn't go to, I forgot whatever city it was, that also left room for Paul and other of his followers to spread their false message of their Messiah. I have to get more information on that, but it was just something that was through out there. All right. Peace and blessings. Yeah. Mm. Um, apostleship. I'm just throwing things out there before I start. Just testing my own heart of faith right now, see much I know before I even actually get this started, just to put things in one's brain. Apostleship. Paul always likes to say that he was chosen to be an apostle. Okay. When we see in Matthew chapter 10, verse 1 through 2, we see who was given authority over spirits and the 12 actual apostles. All right. Now, with that being said, I'd like to point something out about that. He can never be an apostle. For one, let's check game the simple fact that one of his companions that he traveled with, which was Barnabas, they cast lots for Barnabas to be an apostle. After the betrayal of Judas, not Paul. Let's just throw that out there. That's something to think about. They chose Barnabas. One of Paul's companions that traveled with Paul, they didn't choose Paul. Let that sink in. All right. Number two, there cannot be 13 apostles. This is why the Messiah said things like you will sit on. This is why the Messiah said things like you will sit on 12 thrones. Judging the 12 tribes of Israel. There can't be 13 apostles. All right, there can't be. Also, do you know why he chose 12? Does anybody know why Yeshua chose 12 and the 72? This is also why Paul wouldn't fit in the description of being an apostle. All right, he was better off being just saying I was a follower, but instead he wanted to make himself out to be a guide or some type of make himself seem like he knew more than the apostles themselves, like I said, who walked. But again, the reason why Yeshua chose 12 and the 70 or the so-called 72, some say 70, some say 72, was to show that he was the prophet in Deuteronomy that Moses spoke about. Because remember, Moses chose 12 and he himself chose 72 or 70, whatever you want to say. All right. There it is. Even as our beloved brother Paul also. Yeah, that's Second Peter. Yeah, we don't believe that. Even scholars will tell you that that was not written by Paul himself, Peter himself. All right. Okay. Again, so let's go ahead and get this started. Shalom, everybody. This brother Yosef, John Davis. Yep. That's right, bro. What exactly is in the scene? Even like Nazarene, I think it said it right. What exactly is the scene? Nazarene or Ebionite? Simple, bro. Followers of the way. They're followers of Yeshua. They called them Ebion, or so-called the poor, because they figured that they had a poor understanding of the law, which they did not. All right. These believers of Ebion or the Essenes and Nazarenes were vegans and vegetarians. All right. Peace and blessings. That's just what it is. They kept the law of Genesis chapter 1. Like he told them in the Gospel of Nazarenes, he told them, this is how you know that you are followers of me, that you love all creatures of the Most High. And that's animals and human beings, all the way down to an ant. All creatures of the Most High. Okay. That was the difference between them and the rest of the world. All right. They were the light, the true children of light, the chosen. Okay. When the scripture talks about the chosen, they're talking about the Essenes. The Essenes considered themselves the chosen. Actually, Essene actually means chosen or silent, the silent ones. All right. Got multiple meanings. These people were they say the first to believe, not in slaves. This is why he taught to free the prisoners, go to teach the prisoners and free the widows. They didn't believe in slavery. However, they looked at the creator in all righteousness. That is what they tried to become in all righteousness. They were a reflector of the image of their creator, the light. Ebion. Again, I think I got it way up in there. It's way up in there. I was gonna give a reference. One of the best references that one of our enemies that like to throw it out there is Epiphanius of Panarion talks about us. But anyways, man, enough of that. Let's go ahead and get into what we're getting to. Paul had problems with vegetarian believers, the Ebionites. Paul had problems with vegetarian believers, the Ebionites. For those who don't know, the Bible has. For those who don't know, you don't see Messiah eating no flesh all the way up until the point about some broiled fish, which is a problem. So they tried to make him out to be a pescatarian. Without the fish, that he'd be a what? A vegetarian. That's just something to throw in there. You know, that's very mysterious. Okay. We can defend that later. We defended that so many times, and we give all praise to the Father and His will for us shining a light on that doctrine. All right. But we know the Messiah was not a flesh eater at all. He desires mercy and not sacrifice. Remember that, all right? And that's mercy upon all of the Father's creatures on that is upon His earth. So here we go. Let's go ahead and start them on page 216. To all my Essenes and Nazarenes that are following, I will try to follow the chat as much as possible. All right. Like I said, I am on YouTube. Okay. There we go. It says, we have seen. All right. Let's get it. It says, we have seen that the Ebionites were vegetarians and that they abstained from wine. All right. However, if Jesus and the 12 endorsed the flesh diet, all right. Peace and blessings, everybody. However, if Jesus and the 12 endorsed the flesh diet and the consumption of alcoholic beverage, moreover, if they themselves ate animal flesh and drank wine, then we would not expect believers and followers of the 12 to insist on vegetarianism and abstention from wine and other fermented drinks. On the other hand, if Yeshua and the 12 were in fact vegetarians, and if they instructed their followers to adhere to a vegetarian diet, we should expect to at least some evidence in the writings of Paul that this was the case. You see that? This goes back to what I told y'all. Y'all think that Paul's letters was for y'all. Many people and other scholars would agree that Paul's letters were not for you guys. Paul's letters were for a certain group of people that followed the vegetarian diet-based law. All right? To know Ebion and to know the poor, to know the Essenes, is to know Paul and his doctrine and who his letters were for. Like they say, you see certain scriptures of Paul's in there, and your pastor will probably refer to it to a TD Jakes, like the Revelations 2 and 2. I know those they call apostles that are not, but they're synagogues who say, is that what it says? Is that the one, or is the you tested those that are apostles and are not? But that's Revelations 2 and 2. Anyways, and they would throw that at TD Jakes or somebody like that. No, speaking about Paul. He was in Ephesus, Ephesians, and through the Asia Minor. And that's where he was rejected a lot at. Okay? Paul didn't take that too well. Now, I don't want to get off too much of the top, but understand that, again, when you follow the New Testament, people only look at the scripture and fail to look at the New Testament for the history part of it. There's history. Paul was at beef with someone who would not follow his doctrine. All right? So let's keep on going. So we're going to prove the Ebionites doctrine. Okay. We're going to prove the Ebionite doctrine through Paul's letters. All right. It says, when we carefully sift through the epistles of Paul, we do not only discover that there were believers in the assemblies Paul established. It says, who insisted on vegetarianism and who also abstained from wine, but we also discovered that they appealed to the Jerusalem apostles in order to justify their practices, which we know to be in Acts chapter 15. It says, it was in fact the emissaries of James, the brother of Jesus, and the elders from Jerusalem who actually made Paul's converts aware that vegetarianism and abstention from alcoholic beverage is a requirement which Jesus himself imposed on all the true disciples and followers. Paul, of course, rejected vegetarianism and sanctioned the flesh diet and consumption of fermented beverages. He complained that food had no bearing on the relationship with God. 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and 8. Also, hold on. Oh, wow. I also forgot to put these in my groups. So I guess I'll do that later. All right. It's cool. I'll do that later. It says, Paul, of course, rejected vegetarianism and sanctioned the flesh diet and consumption of fermented beverages. He claimed that food had no bearing on relationship with God. 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 8. All right. So that's what we do, man. We like to throw out references and show, tell, and proof of what we're doing. So 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and 8. There we go. I pretty much got some of this stuff underlined. All right. Here we go. There it is. 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and 8. But meat commendeth us not to God, for neither if we eat are we the better, neither if we eat not are we the worse. All right. Peace and blessings. There we have it. His letters are aimed at somebody. All right. He instructed his followers to buy whatever meat was sold in the market. 1 Corinthians 10 and 25. All right. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 25. Here we have it. Whatsoever is sold in the shambles that eat, asking no question, for the conscience sake. Okay. That was 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 25. You can eat whatever, whenever, taking no thought about it, for the conscience sake. Why is he writing about these things? Paul is just not sent for one. That right there shows that Paul could never been a Pharisee. Remember, he said, I become all things to all men. So that right there shows that Paul couldn't have been a Pharisee, because Pharisees kept a certain dietary law, which we believe Leviticus 11, Deuteronomy 14. So the Pharisees would have had a problem with 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 25. And that's something I believe my brother Romar pointed out. So he couldn't have been a Pharisee. So that's a lie. The Pharisees would have raised hell with Paul saying that. Again, the Pharisees kept a dietary law. But Paul says, 1 Corinthians 10 and 25, you can eat whatever in the shambles markets, asking no questions for the conscience sake. So that right there eliminates him of that. That also eliminates him as a Nazarene or Nazarite or the ringleader of the Nazarenes, because they didn't deal with the flesh, period. So what was he? Okay. So again, the reason why he's writing about these things, because somebody or a group of people disagrees with his doctrine, and they are not flesh eaters. Who were they? Followers of the way. He also instructed his followers to eat whatever their unbelieving friends may serve at the table. This included the sacrificial flesh providing the host. Then I raised the issue. And even if they did, Paul told them to abstain, not because it was wrong to eat sacrifice to idols, but rather because of the unbelievers and weak brothers' conscience. All right. That's why. He didn't let them know it was wrong to eat it, because Genesis 1, chapter 29 and 30 says it's wrong. All right. Because Moses said it's wrong. Thou shalt not kill. Because Noah said it was wrong. Genesis chapter 6, verse 18 through 22. All right. Because the prophet said it was wrong. No, he didn't tell them that. All right. But why though? Like they said, but rather because of the unbelievers and weak brothers' conscience. Who would that be? That would be us and those who we follow, like we call the Ebion, the Nazarenes. Called them weak. All right. Now, here's what I like to tell people. When they say that those are weak who eateth herbs, are you saying that the Most High made Adam weak because a commandment was given to Adam to eat fruits, herbs, and vegetables? So was Adam weak? Do we call Adam weak? Now, we Ebion don't believe that Adam sinned or was a transgressor. But even so, before the fall, so-called before the fall, he was given the dietary-based law. Does this make Adam weak? Remember, they said those who eat the herb are weak. Does this make Adam weak? Does this make the Most High weak? Because Adam was made in the image of the Creator. That's just something to think about. So let's look at 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 15, and also 27 for witnesses. 1 Corinthians 10, 15. There it is. First Corinthians 10, verse 15. If any of them that believe not, who is he talking about? He's talking about the Essenes, the Nazarenes. If any of them believe not, bid you to a feast, and ye be disposed to go, whatsoever is set before you, eat, asking no questions for the conscience sake. But if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice to idols, eat not for his sake that showed it, and for the conscience sake. Okay? His letters are for a certain group of people that did not agree with him. His letters were for a certain group of people that were vegans and vegetarians. Here we go. Despite the fact that Paul rejected vegetarianism and was convinced that it was all right to consume animal flesh, he nevertheless instructed the meat eaters and those who drank wine not to do so, in order not to cause a scandal in the congregation. All right. Romans 14 indisputably proves that there were two types of believers in Rome. One group consumed animal flesh and wine, while other groups practiced vegetarianism and also abstained from wine. One man hath faith to all things, but who is weak eats only vegetables. This verse clearly proves that some believers in Rome did not eat animal flesh, but were actually vegetarians. Paul, of course, regarded this group as weak, while the flesh eaters are strong. Romans 14 and 21 explicitly points out that the issue was flesh and wine. Please note, here we have it. It is good to not eat meat, drink wine, nor do anything by which your brother stumbles, is offended, or is made weak. All right. Let's check that out. That's Romans chapter 14 and 21. Let's look at that. All right. Again, Paul's letters were for a certain group of people. And Paul had a problem with these groups of people. Romans 14 and 21. Here we have it. It is good neither to eat flesh, nor to drink wine, nor anything whereby thy brother stumbleth, or is offended, or is made weak. Okay? Now, like we said, I'm going through two books, this and the Exhortations. And these are going to combine together and give you and show you who exactly Paul was talking about. Why is Paul making a doctrine about vegetarianism? Who is he speaking about? Again, like the book said, there were two groups of people in Rome: those who did believe in eating flesh and those who didn't. But we fail to recognize the history of the Bible, and we only recognize the scriptures. Here we go. The text plainly states that eating meat and drinking wine could cause offense to other followers of Yeshua. Paul used the word scandalizo, which means scandalize, displeasure. The word scandalize means to shock the moral feeling by offensive conduct. It is evident that therefore that certain followers of Jesus in Rome practice vegetarianism. How do we know this? Again, Romans chapter 14 and 21. And held very strong beliefs on the issue of meat and wine. Paul did not say that they should eat meat and drink wine as others do. Neither did he quote the alleged words of Jesus that nothing can pollute that enters the mouth. Instead, he actually instructed the strong to abstain from flesh and wine for the sake of those who did not eat meat and drink wine. King Romar, what's up, fam? Peace and blessings. Paul did not regard these vegetarian believers as those who adhered to the doctrines of demons, as the author of 1 Timothy 4, verse 1 through 4 believed. Let's check it out. All right. Peace and blessings. First Timothy chapter 4, verse 1 through 4. Here we have it. Forbidding, I'm going to start at 1. Now, the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisies, having their conscience seared with a hole with iron, forbidding to marry. Who forbids to marry? The Essenes. And commanding to abstain from meat. Who commands to abstain from meat? The Essenes, the Ebionites, the Nazarites, which God hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. For every creature of God is good and nothing to be refused. It be received with thanksgiving. All right. So now, I'm going to put those in the chat. We see that Paul in his letters, or for a certain group of people who are vegans and vegetarians. All right. Now, I also want to show something real fast because that's very important. Hold tight. There is something that Yeshua said that goes against what Paul believes in that doctrine. Hold on, we're going to see. So I want to put this in. So 1 Corinthians, so everybody can go back over this. 1 Corinthians 8:8. 1 Corinthians 8:8. All right. 1 Corinthians. All right. 10 and 25. All right. As well as through 27. I'll put through 27. All right. Romans. All right. 14. All right. 21. As well as 1 Timothy 4, verse 1 through 4. All right. 1 Timothy 4, 1 through 4. All right. Now, why did I do that? Those scriptures show and tell again that the so-called self-proclaimed Apostle Paul has a problem with followers of Jesus who are vegetarians. All right. Let me say that again. Those scriptures show and tell that the Apostle Paul has a problem with Jesus followers who are vegans and vegetarians. Now, notice what it said, forbidding to marry and forbidding to marry. Now, I want to show something real fast. Okay. Here we go. Matthew chapter 22 and 30. I'm finna show this. Here we go. Matthew chapter 22 and 30. What that say? What that say? What that say? Matthew chapter 22 and 30. For in this resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God. Huh? Am I lying? Matthew chapter 22 and 30. You see Paul's writings are against the Messiahs. Matthew chapter 22 and 30. For in the resurrection, neither do they marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God. So when you look at 1 Timothy, forbidding to marry, 1 through 4, they have a problem with a certain group, a certain sectarian group. Now, not all the scenes in Ebionites forbidden to marry. Some groups, some Essenes believe that if you didn't marry, that you would be cutting off mankind. The other half believe that women did not own their whole fidelity to one man, which means that most women are not with the first person that they had sex with or broke their virginity. That's not the case, so we can see that right now. If you look in these households, I guarantee the woman that you're with, most women that you're with, you're not the person that took her virginity from her. Point blank, period. It just ain't that way no more. We are not espoused anymore to anybody. And when you're espoused, you're giving a wife at like 12 and 13. That's just not how we're cut anymore. We have become wicked. All right. So again, when Jesus said in Matthew chapter 22 and 30, for in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage. Who was he talking about? Yahshua was even speaking of the Essenes and the Ebionite sect. Okay. This is who Timothy and Paul did not like. They were vegans and they abstained from marriage. They were the apostles. Now, the Clementine homilies, I believe, shows Peter had a wife, but for the most part, they abstained from that and became clean. All right. If I can find it real fast, I'll even show it in here. Let me see some. It's the order of kingdom of that. I know I was showing this to my brother. Yeremiah, but if I can't find it, I won't too much get off subject. But basically, Yahshua told us that those of the Most High in this book keep seed within themselves. So, yeah, I won't. Yeah, I won't spend too much time on it, but I'll try to, if I can get it later, if anybody knows have, but he told him that. But anyways, as you can see, we're pointing out the true basis that Paul is letting it be known that there is a sectarian group of followers of Yahshua that are vegan based. All right. This is what his letters about. Stop thinking his letters were for you. Okay. Let's keep going. What it says is, Nor did he say that these vegetarian believers were impure. He never said that. And that this is why they regarded meat eating impure, as did the author of Titus. For the author of Titus implied that those who do not eat everything are impure. Let's look at Titus 1:15. As a matter of fact, I don't even have too much even do that. I just, like I said, go to my computer and show it. We're going to look at Titus 1:15. Peace and blessings. And so people like to try to judge us for using these books and references, but you can't judge. You can't get mad at the book for telling truth, because all the references we throw out is there when you go and search it. And it all makes sense when you get done. All right. So we're going to look at Titus verse 1:14. Peace and blessings to everybody. Here's what it says. So it's Titus 1:15. Sorry about that. Let's look at this. To the pure, all things are pure. But to those who are corrupted and do not believe, nothing is pure. In fact, both their minds and conscience are corrupted. All right. I said 1:14, so I was right. 1:15. So Titus 1:15. For the author Titus implied that those who do not eat everything are impure. That's Titus 1:15. Sorry about that. All right. It says the Corinthians, Paul said that he would not eat meat all his life, since eating meat offended certain believers in that community. 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and 13. All right. 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and 13. The fact we even got to go into these letters and do all this, man, it's crazy. Again, people have failed to realize the history. All right. 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and 13. What does it say? Wherefore, if meat maketh my brother to offend, I will eat no flesh while the world standeth, lest I make my brother offend. Who is he speaking about? Wherefore, if meat make my brother to offend, I will eat no flesh while the world standeth, lest I make my brother to offend. Who is he speaking about? These are Paul letters. Who was he speaking about? He ain't speaking about T.D. Jakes. That's First Corinthians 8 and 13. Who is Paul speaking about? He's speaking about James and the Ebion, Acts chapter 15. Go and look it up for yourself when he told to abstain from meats, things that are offered into idols, flesh. That is what he told him. All right. So we are shown references and basis that Paul even knows about the Ebion. Okay. The followers of the way, the Essenes. Here we have it. Therefore, followers, that certain believers in Rome and Corinth practice vegetarians, they also abstain from wine. Paul did not regard them as followers of demons, but rather instructed others not to eat meat and drink wine for their sake. Practically no meat eaters today adhere to these instructions, but rather they condemn the vegetarian believers. Why so many vegetarian believers in these early days if Jesus was a meat eater and if all apostles consumed animal flesh and drank wine? Moreover, why did they criticize and condemn those who ate meat and drank wine? We should note that by 64 AD, Paul was already dead, according to Christian traditions. Jesus died in the early 30s. If Jesus ate meat and drank wine, and if the 12 did the same, where did these believers get the idea that it was wrong to do so? Many apostles were still alive, and many believers who personally knew Jesus were still alive. So if they all ate meat and drank wine, why would these believers abstain from meat and wine? The answer is very simple. Yeshua, the 12, and all the other followers were vegetarians, and they also abstained from wine. Paul knew this, but he could not preach vegetarianism to the Gentiles since that would hinder his mission. If Yeshua taught that all flesh is good to eat, as we are told in Mark 7, why didn't Paul quote that statement? Why didn't he tell them that Peter, James, and John and all the believers in Jerusalem consumed animal flesh and drank wine so that they had no valid reason to object to all flesh diet and stubbornly adhere to their vegetarianism? The fact is, these vegetarian believers were influenced by the emissaries from James, the brother of Yeshua, Acts 15 and Acts 21. Paul had other ideas, and he allowed his converts to eat meat and drink wine and to retain their slaves and eat food sacrificed to idols. When the emissaries from James came in contact with Paul's converts, they accepted the version of the gospel which Paul considered another gospel, which he did not preach. Not because he believed that it was right to do so, but in order to get as many converts as he could. They followed Paul and disputes his news, claiming that his apostleship was illegitimate. They urged Paul's followers to conform to doctrines taught by the 12 and James, the brother of Yeshua, who was the head of the 12 and the 72 elders. Remember, I told y'all that is why Yeshua chose 12 and 72, because he was to imitate and to show that he was the prophet that Moses spoke about in Deuteronomy chapter 18. All right. That those who swayed, that believers in Rome, Corinth, Colossae, Galatia, and other congregation with Paul established were associated with James. All right. Were associated with James, the brother of Yeshua. It's evident from Galatians chapter 2, verse 4 through 5, where Paul clearly links the Judaizers with James, the just. All right. We'll look it over in Galatians chapter 2, verse 4 through 5. There we have it. Galatians 2, 4 through 5. All right. And that because of false brethren, unawares brought in, who came in privately to spy out our liberties, which we have in Christ, Yeshua, that they might bring us into bondage, to whom we gave place by subjection. No, not for an hour, that the truth of the gospel might continue with you. Who are these brethren that he's talking about, these false brethren? He's speaking about the Ebion. Yeah, they spying out. They trying to see what you're teaching because they hear that you're not teaching what the Messiah taught. That's Galatians chapter 2, verse 4 through 5. Who are these brethren? The Ebion. 2, 4 through 5. Who are these brethren? It's Ebion, man. All right. Peace and blessings. Here we go. Where Paul links the Judaizers with James the Just. Although they were James' emissaries, Paul regarded them as false brothers. Some of these emissaries of James were in fact important leaders, but Paul rejected them nevertheless. Paul accused these important leaders whom he associated with James, the brother of Jesus, of preaching another gospel and another Jesus. That's what I was telling y'all, all right? James, the Lord's brother, never taught that Jesus was a blood sacrifice, nor that Jesus was a God, nor that Jesus was coming back to save the earth. All right. But he told you in the book of James that even the devils tremble when believe in one God. All right. Paul taught another doctrine. Paul taught another Jesus. No matter what you say that Paul, how good you think Paul was, His doctrine reverts back to a blood atonement, a sacrifice, preaching of another Jesus, speaking in tongues, Holy Ghost and Holy Spirits. These are his doctrines. He spoke another Jesus. The mysteries, the apostles, the Ebion, the Essenes, the Nazarites did not teach this. James did not teach this. Teach this. All right, this is what we must get. And these are the same so-called false brethren that he's talking about that came to spy out what he was preaching. Again, because they had heard that he was teaching against the original law. All right. Even Jesus told you it was one God. All right. He urges Galatians to reject the teaching of James and his emissaries and to return to the gospel here regionally preached to them. And that was that verse 5, I believe. All right. To whom we gave place by subjection, no, not for an hour, that the truth of the gospel might continue with you. What gospel? His gospel. Not James' gospel, not the false brethren gospels that he calls false brethren, but his gospel. All right. The evidence, however, reveals that they did not, and that Galatians refused to participate in the financial offering of Paul's organized as help for the Jerusalem Ebionites. For the Jerusalem Ebionites. All right. For the Jerusalem Ebionites, the poor. All right. Peace and blessings. In fact, Paul was very much afraid that the financial help he was taking to Jerusalem would not be accepted by James. The apostles did not want to bribe and brought with gifts and money and be obliged to be accepted by Paul's loose version of the message of Jesus. All right. Paul instructed the believers in Rome to pray that his financial help would be accepted by James and the elders. Romans chapter 15 and 31. All right. Peace and blessings. I'm sure that's James. And that's crazy. Like right after his epistles, after you see his epistles, what's coming? James. Still got a lot of epistles, man. Got more epistles than the actual apostles themselves. That's crazy. Here we are. It gave us Romans chapter 15 and 31. Here we are. Peace and blessings. That's crazy. I already got it highlighted. Let's see what we got. That I may be delivered from them that do not believe in Judea, and that my service which I have for Jerusalem may be accepted of the saints. You see that? Who is in Judea? The Ebion, the poor, James the just in them. I'm sorry. And what do you say? I have for Jerusalem may be accepted for the saints. Who is he talking about? The Ebion. Yeah. James in there. Yeah. These scriptures let you know that Paul knew of the Ebion, the poor. He knew of James the just. And he was teaching a doctrine contrary to what they were teaching. But if he taught what they was teaching, it would have defeated his mission and purpose he had for the high priest. He could have been looked upon and stoned. If Paul was teaching what they were teaching, trust and believe, he would have got stoned, just like the apostles. He would have been martyred right on the spot. What happened? Again, that was Romans chapter 15 and 31. Who are these saints? Okay, so what Romans 15 and 31 is insinuating, everything that we done read, okay? All right, the saints in Jerusalem and the saints in Judea, okay? Or all the vegans that was talked about in 1 Corinthians 10 and 15, 1 Corinthians 10 and 27, as well as Romans 14 and 21, 1 Timothy 4, 1 through 4, as well as 1 Corinthians 10 and 25. All right. These are who his letters are towards. His letters are towards. The brothers who do not believe him in Judea and Jerusalem, the saints, those are who his letters are towards. All right. Let's keep going. Peace and blessings. In fact, it says we know that towards the end of his career, Paul was arrested in Jerusalem. The Jews were going to kill him for his Antonian stance. As a Roman citizen, he claimed his right to defend himself in the presence of Caesar, Nero at that time. The Jerusalem apostle refused to send a delegation to defend Paul during his first trial before Nero. No delegation was sent either from Jerusalem or Rome. Please note, in my first defense, no one took my part but left me. May it not be held against them. That was 2 Timothy chapter 4 and 16. We know for certain that there were believers in Rome at that time. Paul faced Nero, yet none of those believers tried to help Paul in any way. None of those believers. Again, 2 Timothy 4 and 16. Let's look at it. That's a good standpoint. If Paul was being persecuted, why didn't any of the so-called leaders of the way try to help Paul when he was being persecuted? Huh? You know how like the apostles mourned for Yeshua and his crucifixion and all that? Show me where the apostles or any of the apostles mourned for Paul when he was being persecuted for his actions. Show me one. You won't see no apostles mourning for Paul because of his persecution. We'll be at 2 Timothy chapter 4 and 16. Here we go. Second Timothy 4 and 16. At my first answer, no man stood with me, but all men forsook me. I pray God that it may not be laid to their charge. You see that? No man, not one apostle, not one leader, not one real follower of Yeshua. Nobody stood for Paul. That's keynote. 2 Timothy 4 and 16. Nobody stood for Paul. Nobody. If he was teaching a so-called real righteous way of the Messiah, why did no apostles or disciples stand for him? And we know that there were apostles and disciples in Rome and leaders of the way. Nobody stood for him like they tried to stand for the Messiah or mourn for the Messiah. 2 Timothy 4 and 16. It's keynote. Nobody. Let's keep going. We know for certain that there were believers in Rome at that time Paul faced Nero, yet none of those believers tried to help Paul in any way whatsoever. They did not. And he told you that. Not only the believers in Rome, but virtually in Asia deserted Paul and his gospel. That is correct. This you know, that all who are in Asia turned away from me, whom are Phygellus and Hermogenes. May the Lord grant mercy on the house of one Sepphoris, for he has often refreshed me and was not ashamed of my chain. But when he was in Rome, he sought me diligently and found me. That is Timothy chapter 1, verse 15 through 18. Put that in the comment section. 1 Timothy 1, 15 through 18. All right, peace and blessings. All right. And I'll actually show that reference. Yeah. Paul was rejected, man. And what's crazy is a lot of these letters, the Messiah Yeshua supposedly wrote in Revelations, was in the Asia Minor. In these same places, notice how Yeshua never wrote any letter to them being mad or discrediting them for not accepting Paul. He actually gave them praises for not accepting Paul. And I'm going to show that. All right. So again, 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 15 through 18. Here you have it. This is faithful, saying, and worthy of all acceptations. All right. That Christ Jesus was sent to the world to save the sinners, whom I am chief. No, you're not, my man. You're not chief. If you were chief, you would have never had to go to the chief of Jerusalem to learn the law. Huh? Yeah. Okay. I can't I? Yeah, to learn the law. Howbeit, for this cause I obtained mercy, that in me first, in me first, not the apostles, not the ones that walk with him, Jesus Christ might show forth all long suffering for a pattern to them which should hereafter believe on him to life everlasting. Now, King eternal, immortal, invisible, the only one wise God, be honor and glory forever and ever. Amen. This I charge and commit unto thee, son Timothy, according to the prophecies which went forth of thee, that thou by them mightest wear a good warfare. All right. Turn my light back off. All right. There we go. The phrase turned away has been translated from Greek word, all right? Astraphro, from this Greek word, the English word apostasy is derived, okay? It is the number 6, Strong's number 6 and 4, all right? Where it is defined to turn away, okay? So Strong's chapter 6, 54, Strong's, where it's defined as turned away. The word simply means turned away from allegiance, to defect. The prefix apo signifies separation. Believers in Asia and Rome simply abandoned Paul and separated from him. They became a part of what is now called Jewish Christianity. The final rejection and separation occurred after Paul's arrest in Jerusalem. The problem, however, began much earlier in 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and 12. Out that Corinthians already formed separate parties. Let's look at that. 1 Corinthians 1 and 12. Here we go. Now this I say, that every one of you said, I am Paul, and I of Apollo, and I of Cephas, and I of Christ. Is Christ divided? Was Paul crucified for you, or were ye baptized in the name of Paul? Okay. Some recognize Paul, others Apollos, while still others Peter. It was a division. Who you follow? Do you follow Paul? Do you follow Apollos? Do you follow Peter? Who did Peter follow? Peter followed James. Who did James follow? James followed his brother Yeshua. There was a division. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and 12. And for that Strong's verse, that was Strong's 654. Apostate. Turn away. Apostate. Turn away. That's right. All right. It says in 2 Corinthians, we find a dispute between Paul and the emissaries of the 12. In chapter 11, verse 22, Paul identifies his opponents as Christians who were Hebrews of the seed of Abraham. This immediately points out that his opponents were connected with James and other apostles in Jerusalem. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 11 and 22. Yeah, point this out. You people think, I ain't talking to my audience, but if it's new people in the audience, I don't know who I'll learn. But a lot of it, talking to those who don't understand our doctrine away, you people think that Paul's letters were for you and T.D. Jakes. No. His letters were for certain groups of people, the emissaries, the Ebion, the Nazarenes, the Nazarites, the Essenes. We're pointing these things out. Verification through Paul's letter shows that Paul knows, just like the rest of our enemies, Eusebius, Irenaeus, I don't want to say Philo. I think Philo was a Hebrew. Hegesippus, who else we got over there? All the church fathers, man. So again, and Paul is no different. Okay, all of our enemies know of us in our doctrine. The only people that don't know are these so-called Israelite camps, but they're slowly coming to the light about it. All right, understand this. So we're back at second. Where we at? 2 Corinthians 11 and 22. All right, peace and blessings. Here we go. 2 Corinthians 11 and 22. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they the seed of Abraham? So am I. Here we go. Paul line again. He's a Pharisee. He's a Roman. Why do you think is Roman? A lot of his letters are written to Romans also. Theophilus and all these people. I'm just saying. All right. So 2 Corinthians 11 and 22. All right. 11, 22. Also, what we're insinuating again. Paul identifies his opponents as Christians who were Hebrews of the seed of Abraham. This immediately points out that the opponents were connected with James and the other apostles in Jerusalem. Check all the scripture I just put in there. Peace and blessings. His opponents claimed to be followers of Jesus, were accepted in 1027. They acclaimed the authority in Jerusalem, so that Paul styles the Jerusalem apostles as super apostles. And I believe we're supposed to be going to 2 Corinthians. What's this? 10 and 7. Let's see. Let's make sure. It didn't say. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 1 Corinthians 10. So let's look. Peace, blessed to everybody that's tuning in. Here we go. So it's actually 8, 10 and 8. 2 Corinthians 10 and 8. For though I should boast somewhat more of our authority, which the Lord hath given us for edification, and not for your destruction, I should not be ashamed. Okay? I'll start from 7 though. Do you look on things after outward? All right. Jason, what up, King? Peace and blessings of the appearance. If any man trusts to himself that he is Christ, let him of himself think this again, that he is Christ. Even so, we Christ. For though I should boast somewhat, we ain't supposed to be boasting, somewhat more of our authority. Huh? What authority does Paul have? Which the Lord hath given us for edification and not for destruction. I should not be ashamed. Okay. They claim the authority of Jerusalem apostles, so that Paul styles the Jerusalem apostles as super apostles. All right. Yeah. Peace and blessings. Yeah. That was 2 Corinthians. Yeah, he's claiming the authority of the Jerusalem apostles. Go look at Acts chapter 15. See who had authority. James, Jesus' brother. That's 2 Corinthians 10 and 27. You see, Paul is, 10 and 7. You see, Paul is claiming the authority of the Jerusalem apostles. All right. Then we're going to look in 2 Corinthians 11 and 5 and 12, 11. All right. I'm going to just put that in there now. 2 Corinthians, all right, 11 and 5. As well as 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians 12, 11. All right. Peace and blessings. Here we go. 11 and 2 Corinthians 11 and 5 says, there it is. Here we go. For I suppose I was not a whit behind the very chiefest apostles. But remember, he's the chief, though, to be called first. Yeah. His letters are for the apostles, the Ebion, the poor, in which whom he claim authority. Huh? Let's go back. 2 Corinthians 12 and 11. That's right. We point this stuff out. 2 Corinthians 12 and 11. There it is. Second witness. Here we go. We know who Paul's letters are for. I am become a fool and glorifying. Ye have compelled me, for I ought to have nothing, to have been commended of you. For nothing am I behind the very chiefest apostles, that I be nothing. Huh? The chiefest apostles, that I be nothing. Stuff is already highlighted. Peace and blessings. His letters were not for you. His letters were for the vegan chiefest apostles that followed the way. Point blank, period. His letters were not for you. His letters for you were for you to read about a certain group of people who he was aiming at. All right. Peace and blessings. The same time, all right. But the same time styles them false apostles and servants of Satan. 2 Corinthians 11, 13 through 15. This y'all Paul. So who do we follow, Paul or the apostles? Your man Paul he's saying my man Paul calling the apostles Satan. 11. That's 13 through 15. Here we go. For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into apostles of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. You see, we use that scripture and try to say that he's talking about us. No, he's saying that James and the Ebion and the Nazarenes or the Nazarites, whatever you want to call them, he's calling them false apostles. And he's saying that Satan himself has transformed himself into an angel of light. He's calling the apostles Satan. He's calling the apostles Satan. What is this term right here? Light. Light is a Dead Sea Scroll term. Children of light, angels of light. He's saying that the apostles are Satan, and Satan has transformed himself into an angel of light. Therefore, if it be so great thing, his ministries also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. Huh? I'm saying bing bong. That's 2 Corinthians. Look it up for yourself. We see who his letters are for. 2 Corinthians 11, 13 through 15. We see who his letters are for. We pointing stuff out. It's not for you, it was for the apostles, whom he called Satanists, who was transformed into angels of light. All right, here we go. There is no doubt that Paul was actually denouncing the original apostles of Jesus. In 11, 22 through 23. Let's go look at 2 Corinthians 11, 22 through 23. So who do we follow? 11, 22 through 23. Who do we follow? Do we follow Paul or the apostles? The real followers of the way, who walked, talked, and spoke with the Messiah face to face, whom Paul is calling Satanists, transformers, angels of light. This is embarrassing, man. 2 Corinthians 11, 22 through 23. Here we go. I think we just read that. Yeah, we read that. Yeah, we read that. What we was talking about. Are they ministers of Christ? I speak as a fool. I am more in labors, more abundant, in stripes abuse measure, in prisons more frequent, in death oft. Of the Jews, 5 times receiving I 40 stripes. I'm just saying. Are they ministers of Christ? I speak as a fool. I am more in labors, more abundant. Come on now. He claiming authority over Jerusalem. He laboring more than James the Just and the apostles. He's suffering more than them. Wow. This is who we following? This is who we following? Okay. Paul clearly states that where we at? That the super apostles were Hebrew Israelites, the seed of Abraham. Paul acknowledged them as ministers of Christ, but claimed that he was in fact greater than they because of his greater persecution. That's what we just read in 2 Corinthians 11, 22 through 23. Okay. In 12 and 11, Paul states that in no way he is inferior to these super apostles. Paul plainly states that these super apostles perform miracles, but he also credits their miracles to Satan. All right, 11, 13 through 15. Okay. Oh yeah, we read that also. Okay. Paul did not deny that these super apostles actually performed miracles, but he claimed that their power was derived from Satan. All right. Biblical scholars generally recognize that in these chapters, we have strong indication of that great schism between Paul and the apostles of Jerusalem. The emissaries James were not the ones who preached another gospel and another Jesus, meaning different. The 12 preached Jesus whom they knew personally and with whom they ate and drank, and they preached the gospel of Yeshua, taught them. It was Paul who actually twisted the truth and who deviated from Yeshua, the 12 knew, and from the gospel that Yeshua preached, that these emissaries sent by James, the brother of Yeshua, and that James and the other original apostles, as well as the 72 elders who assisted James, were actually vegetarians, is also evident from the canonical Acts. Okay. And so, as we can see, let's put the dead book in. All right. As we can see, real fast, Epistle Peter to James, Clementine homilies. This is the real Peter. They knew James and they followed James. All right. He was the head. Even Clement, who followed Peter for 6 years. What does that say? As a matter of fact, just turn it around real fast for those who don't know. All right. Epistle of Clement to James, because James and Epistle Peter to James, they had, all right, they had Peter. You know how they talked about how they spied, they came and spied out. How Paul talked about there were certain apostles, so-called, that came and spied out his liberty and his preaching. Yeah, they wouldn't have to. They would have never had to spy out what he was teaching if he would have did what Peter and Clement would did, which was give writings to James the Just of their teachings, of what they taught, to make sure it was in line with the Messiah taught. But no, somebody does different. Somebody's being a baddie. Somebody doesn't have to listen. Remember, he's not an apostle made by man, but of Jesus Christ only. All the apostles was made apostles by man. They all cast lots. But Paul didn't have to go anything. I'm trying to get this phone to stick. Hopefully it don't fall. It's on the charge now. All right. With that being said, let's keep on going. All right. The book of Acts clearly shows that there were 4 Nazarene Ebionite brothers who either renewed or ended their Nazarite vows, since they had to shave their head. According to the Jewish Pentateuch, the renewal of the vow and the ending of the Nazarite vow demanded an animal sacrifice. Acts chapter 21 and 26. All right. Speaks of an offering. I got to keep my phone on the charger, so y'all going to bear with me. If anybody want to put the references in the chat, that's okay. All right, but I can't do it. I got to let the phone charge for a minute. Be charged in a second. So it'll be Acts chapter 21. Matter of fact, I can put it inside my Facebook. Let me get on here real quick. Put the references within inside the Facebook. Okay, there we go. Yeah, Acts 21 and 26. All right. I'll put it in the comment section right now. Acts 21 and 26. All right. Speaks of an offering which was made and presented by the priest on behalf of all of them. It is a great of significance for you to realize that this word offering is translated from the Greek word prosphora, which always implies an oblation and therefore a bloodless sacrifice. You heard that? You heard that? Did you hear that? Wow, I never knew that. That the word offering is translated from the Greek word prosphora, which implies an oblation and therefore a bloodless sacrifice. The word is the number Strong's 4376. All right. Here we go. Strong's number 4376. The word is prosphora. All right. All right. Translated from offering. All right. Which implies an oblation and therefore a bloodless sacrifice. Peace and blessings. All right. No, we have it. Strong's number 4376. And refers to an oblation, a bloodless sacrifice, a critical lexicon in accordance to the English and Greek New Testament by the great scholar Elbert Bullinger on page 548 points out the word prosphora, an antonym of the word thusia, which means sacrifice, and halakatama, which means burnt offering. He points out that the word prosphora means oblation strictly without blood. That's Strong's 4367. This text readily proves that James and the 12 repudiate the Jewish bloody sacrificial cultus, just as Jesus himself did when he interfered with the sacrifice in the temple. As we shall see in the latter chapter, the Ebionites were therefore correct when they claimed that James spoke against the temple altar and the fire of the altar which consumed the animals as burnt offerings. All right. It's burnt offerings. We're almost done. We're going to head into the exhortations. It's also significant to note that the church father Epiphanius testified whenever an Ebionite was asked why he does not eat animal flesh, this would reply that Jesus revealed it to me. It is therefore fair to say that the followers of Paul who became vegetarians and who also abstained from wine learned that the practice from those who came from James, the brother of Jesus, James, the brother of Jesus, must have been vegetarians, since the church fathers unanimously testified the same. Hegesippus stated regarding James just the following. Here we go. This is Hegesippus, not seen in post, not seen fathers. James, the brother of our Lord, surnamed the just, was made head of the church at Jerusalem. Many indeed were called James. This one was holy from his mother's womb. He drank neither wine nor strong drink and ate no flesh, nor did he shave. All right. All right. Eusebius, okay. This apostle was consecrated from his mother's womb. He drank neither wine nor fermented liquors and abstained from animal blood. A razor never came upon his head. That is Eusebius, Ecclesiastical History, page 76. All right. I believe I got that. Should be up in here. Let's see if I got that already underlined. Just showing references, you guys. Or it may be in a different I wonder if it's in this one. Let me see. Because they do got different versions. They got this one too. This one is kind of light on Paul, but I'll see just in case. This one is pretty light on Paul. Yeah, see. Whatever Eusebius he might be reading from, because I know I actually got it underlined, but I know it's in book 2. All right, here it is right here. That's why I'm like page 76. Um, yeah, peace and blessings to everybody. But yeah, it's in here in Eusebius somewhere. I mean, but dang, I keep forgetting I'm trying to charge right now, so it wouldn't even matter. I just keep it right there. But I found it. There are different, like I said, there are different versions of Eusebius. You got the little small book, and then you got this one. So hopefully, you know what I'm saying, I can show y'all. I hate when I can't do it to show y'all, but I just keep it right there for other references. It says St. Augustine also wrote, okay? So these are references out there, man. So if you want to look upon them, the Nicene Post Fathers, Volume 3, page 361, Eusebius, Ecclesiastical History, page 76, as well as Ecclesiastical History, 2nd Volume 2, translated by H.J. Laurier and G.L. Houston, which St. Augustine wrote. He says St. James never ate animal food, living on seeds and vegetables, never tasted flesh or wine. Okay, flesh or wine. James spoke against the temple and its cultus. He especially spoke against the altar of the temple, as it is evident from an early manuscript used by Jewish Christians, in which is referred to as the Ascent of James. Okay, it's usually referred to as the Ascent of James. We have that, the Ascent of James. So, like I said, we have these books, man. It's good to get these references. And this is where I got my references from. James insisted that the temple was a place of a prayer and not a slaughterhouse. That's also what I told. That's why he said my house should be a house of prayer. So that insinuates what? My house should not be a slaughterhouse. All right. Well, the Sadducees, priests, daily emulated the innocent creatures of God to prove his point. James went to the temple daily and prayed on his knees for a long time. The church fathers testified that this was James' daily practice. They wrote that his knees were like the knees of camels from kneeling in prayer. All right. Eusebius Ecclesiastical History, book chapter 2, chapter 33. I think that's what we just looked at. 2 and 33. Say chapter 33. What might be in there? Oh no, I just gotta look, man. Like I said, I seen it there myself. I've seen it there myself. I mean, you see the martyrdom of James. All right, that's the Lord's brother. But I believe this was in chapter 33. I don't even think there is. Yeah, it's not even a chapter 33 in that one. Like I said, it's different versions. I believe that certain people have different versions. You know what I'm saying? I can't really show y'all nothing to really see it, but I'll just know. I hate it. But yeah, James is spoke about, man. Let's keep on going. To prove this point, James went to the temple daily and prayed. They wrote that his knees were like knees of camel from kneeling in prayer. Eusebius Ecclesiastical History, that prayer was emphasized rather than sacrifice. It's also directed to supporting Acts chapter 3 and 1. Okay. Since are told that at the 9th hour, 3 in the afternoon, that every hour when the daily evening sacrifice was offered by the priests and when the Jewish palace adhered to sacrificial practice, Peter and John went at that very hour to the temple to pray. Wow, let's look at that Acts 3 and 1. That's something to carry on and think about. Acts chapter 3 and 1. Here we go. There it is. Peace and blessings. All right, we taking the phone off on that one. Acts chapter 3 and 1. You see that? Now, Peter and John went up together into the temple at the hour of prayer, being in the 9th hour. That's right. Peter and John. That's right. That's right. Wait a minute, though. Why they ain't making no sacrifices, though? That's something very good to point out. Acts chapter 3 and 1. Acts 3 and 1. Yeah. Peter and John. Temple. Prayer. No animal sacrifice. Peace and blessings. That's right. Explain that. Why don't we see the apostles making animal sacrifices and killing animals? Why don't we see this? We see everybody else doing it. Why don't we see this? What we do see is temple prayer. Just as water was used in the baptism for the remission of sins and opposition of blood, so the prayer was introduced in opposition to the sacrificial cult. We also know from the writings of the church fathers that not only James, but also the other apostles adhered to vegetarianism and abstained from wine. Church father Chrysostom testified that Matthew was also a vegetarian. Church father Clement in Alexandria testified also that Matthew was vegetarian. I'm gonna have to get that book, Clement of Alexandria. I wonder if I got that. An early Christian document depicts Apostle Judas Thomas as abstaining from the flesh of eating and wine. We know, for example, that Apostle Peter also preached a message in Bithynia. 1 Peter 1 and 1. Let's check it out. Peace and blessings. Timothy, Hebrews. And this dude got letters on top of letters, man. I haven't read 1 Peter in so long. James, Jude. Okay, here we go. 1 Peter 1 and 1. I think that's what it said. We know, for example, that the apostle Peter preached this message. It says, Peter, an apostle of Yahshua, to the strangers scattered through Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. Okay, we see that. So that is 1 Peter chapter 1 and 1. Bithynia was actually a stronghold of Jewish Christianity. Bithynia was the northwestern province of Asia Minor. It was conquered by Rome in 75 BC during the reign of Trajan, the Roman emperor. Pentus Secundus, the governor of Bithynia, wrote letters of Trajan, which he stated that Christians in his province abstained from animal flesh. Paulinus, more commonly called Pauline, was born in 53 CE and died in 110 CE. Trajan reigned from 98 CE to 117, some 40 years before Pauline wrote to Trajan. The Roman senator Seneca wrote a letter to Lucius in which he stated the Christians who were under imperial suspicion were a foreign cult who did not eat animal flesh. This was repugnant to the Romans since they have eaten meat, and since it was anathema to deny sacral official cult in Rome in those days. All we hearing is peace and blessings. The testimonies of Pauline and Seneca must be trustworthy and significant because they would not have stated the followers of Jesus were vegetarian if they were not. Paul sanctions the meat diet, but not only the eating of flesh, but also the food sacrificed to idols. But Jesus in Revelation criticized those who ate the food sacrificed to idols. Paul did not only sanction the eating of flesh, but he also sanctioned slavery and taught other things that Jesus and the 12 condemned. If you would rather listen to Paul than the Jesus and the 12, then go ahead and be a bloody butcher, slaughtering animals in order to eat their flesh. That's right. Now, we got that out the way. Peace and blessings. All right. Now we go ahead, all right, and head over here to the exhortations. We have reached our peak. Peace and blessings. We've been on about an hour 135. All right. Here we go. Now this goes into James and a lot of his disputations between Paul's leaders, I believe maybe John's, two follower of John's, maybe a follower of Samaritans and other people. But notice my brother Jeremiah pointed that out, how we believe that Paul may be Simon Magus, because if you notice in the Clementine homilies, Paul is the supposed to be Simon Magus is the main opposition of Peter, but you don't see Paul nowhere mentioned. All right. And also when you go into the discretion, when you see that James is speaking against certain followers of Paul, you don't get a disputation between James and I believe leaders of Simon. You get a disputation between James and followers of Paul. But I believe in the Sin of James or somewhere else, he has a disputation with a follower of Simon. All right, but no disputation with the follower of Paul, which insinuates that Paul may be Simon Magus. But like they say, scholars say they do this because the church itself is embarrassed of Paul's actions. Paul told you about his actions in 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and 13, as well as Acts chapter 26, verse 9 through 13. You go and check that out for yourself. So again, we are now at the book of Jacob the Pious. Jacob the Pious. All right, now, before I go there, I always like to show references where my man's got his references from. All right. So I can find it real fast. Peace and blessings to everybody that's sitting there, hold on and listen. This is a very interesting read and study. This goes into everything that we just talked about concerning Paul and his letters, concerning the emissaries, the Nazarenes, the Ebionites, the Ebion, Essene, Yessene, Nazarites, Nazarenes, whatever you want to call them. Okay. There it is. I think I just found it. Here it is. Come back here. I just found you. I just sent you. All right, here it is. You see that? Well, I'm gonna just say it says sources mostly. Okay, so the book I'm going into, all right. The book I'm going into, he said got his sources mostly from the Ascent of James. All right, the Ascent of James. Brother Jeremiah says now, okay, got that in there. Thank you, King. Thank you. The Acts 3:1 was powerful. Yeah, they went into the temple and prayed. They ain't gonna make no sacrificial sacrifices. Peace and blessings. So the Ascent of James, he used this. Other parts of the Clementine literature of letters of Peter to James, and we showed you that earlier. All right, it's no cap. There it is. Epistle Peter to James. All right, Epistle Peter to James. All right, he used that. Clementine homilies. He used Josephus. That's way down there. I don't feel like doing all that. Antiquity of the Jews, Jewish wars. We got that. Ecclesiae, history. What we just showed you. All right. As well as this. So he's showing you his references. Letter to the Galatians. We got that. You know what I'm saying? Of course, in the New Testament, Acts of the Apostles by Luke, and as well as 1 and 2 Peter. So these is what we heading into. What's going on here? What's going on here? You trying to add on? I know you ain't coming up in here. Yeah. Peace and blessings, King. You ready? You know how we do it, King. We had Nah, man, it's our world, man. We share the same world, King. You hear me? All praise. All right, we on page 163. Okay, page 163 is Exhortations. If you notice, I just shared it in the chat. Okay. So that way they know the reference that we're coming from, and that it is an actual book. Let me see. If folks want to know, explain to them what the exhortation is, what the compilation of materials that brought together the exhortation. Some people may not know how. Okay, so basically what the exhortation is, the brother compromised the books from all the apostles, and as well as Yahshua, as well as John the Baptist, and he composed them in one book without the writings of Paul, and how he felt the ministry would have sounded without the writings of Paul. So he gives you a book basically like the New Testament without the writings of Paul. again, he does add a little bit of his own commentary there, but it all goes back to Torah. But for the most part, he shows you where he gets his references from. This is why I showed you all his references that we have. And a lot of things that he did say, for the most part, did come from out the books of references that he said that he did get them from. Okay. And again, and for the most part, a lot of these people that he did get them from were from the tribe of Judah. All right. From Simon, Yeshua. I think, like I said, I don't know if I think John the Baptist is a Levite, right? But he still had some in there. But for the most part, again, these are comprised works, okay, of how it was sound without Paul's writings introduced within our writings, okay. And so, what we're reading is the disputation between James the Just, which is Yeshua's brother. He's going to have disputations with those that are of Samaritan religions, Paul religions, John the Baptist. And we're going to show you everything that, what we've been speaking about, how Paul's letters were aimed at one group of people. And those people did not, adhere to his beliefs because, again, he taught another gospel, okay? And our so-called enemies, this Jewish man called Samuel ben Naphtali, he knows that Paul was an apostate himself, okay? And this brother has a lot of same beliefs that we have. He doesn't believe in all that supernatural demon stuff. He believes that the man himself is the demon. He believes, that Paul himself was an apostate. He doesn't accept Paul. This is just a Jewish man himself. He knows what's going on, okay? He teaches that Yeshua himself was just a man. He doesn't believe that Yeshua was this supernatural Jesus that Paul taught. Like we said, Paul taught another Jesus. He did not teach the doctrine that James and the emissaries taught. All right. It was, again, like we showed that he claimed authority that James claimed. You know what I'm saying? And again, we showed that his letters were aimed at vegetarian followers of the way. We showed that there were vegans in Rome at that time. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people, like we say, a lot of people fail to realize the history of scripture, and they only acknowledge scripture for scripture only, not realize that Paul's letters are not for you. Paul's letters are for you to read that were about a group of people that he did not agree with, and they did not agree with him. This is why you see a lot of Nazarene stuff in there with vows and just it's a lot, man. So we're just bringing this stuff and things to light. Once you again start to recognize the history of the New Testament, you will start to see and shine the light that there is a war going on between these sects. All right. And also, we also failed to realize that the poor was a sect. It wasn't just Pharisees and Sadducees. The poor was a sect themselves. What did this poor or Ebion sect group believe in? All right, that they believe in a sacrificial cult system. What they vegans? That they believe in what Paul followed, where you can eat anything in the market. All right, without conscious sake, what I have no thoughts about it. All right, what did they believe in? Okay, but we have put these Pharisees and Paul over. That's all we've read so much within the church and its Israelite camps, and no light has really been shined on these Ebionites. And now the sect has been erected again. Like I said earlier, the Ebionites believe that the Ebionite sect is erected in every generation to show forth that what the Most High's true ageless will is. There will be another Ebionite sect that will erect after us if this world doesn't end. There it is right there. And you guys can go and check this out for yourselves, okay? And it gives you all second and third witnesses where he gets his beliefs from. Can't go wrong with it. So go ahead, Ken. If you got something to say, man, we go get this started, man. It's on you.
I'm gonna let you know you the man. You said page 167. I'm following you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can go ahead and start on page 167, and then and then after that you can head over after you finish with the political troubles in the land. After you finish with the political troubles in the land, we can skip over the prayer. You know what I'm saying? It's just a prayer, and we can head straight over to page 168. Yaakov's preaching to Clement, and we can head from over there.
All right. You want me to read it?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, King. All right.
One day, near to the time of the festival of lights, it came to pass that our Yaakov was leaving the temple in the evening, having spent the whole day in prayer. And there was a young man who had come out to Jerusalem to seek out Yaakov. So he took hold of Yaakov's mantle. At this, Yaakov turned around to see who it was who had done this. The young man bowed to him and said, "Please do not be afraid." So Yaakov, now when we say Yaakov, fam, this is James the Just, basically. So Yaakov said to him, the peace of our Elohim be with you. And the young man, all the while maintaining hold of his mantle and keeping his head bowed low, answered, all the people in this city say that you are a holy and a wise man, and that everyone attends to your words. But Yaakov said to him, if you were to show as much awe and reverence for the Most High as you would show for the least of the Most High servants, believe me, the kingdom of Elohim will be fulfilled tomorrow. So Yaakov invited him to his house so that they could talk freely beyond the ears of the Roman spies. And the brothers prepared a meal for them. And Yaakov asked the young man, whose name was Clement, tell me, what troubles weigh so heavily on your soul? So Clement answered and said, I have lived in Rome for most of my life. In Rome, a father of nations.
Where you at? Where you at, King?
I'm on page 169.
No. Start at start at 160. 163. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. I thought you said start off like Yaakov's preaching to Clement.
Oh no, I was saying after 163, we gonna jump over to prayer, then we gonna head over there.
Okay, so page 163.
Yeah.
Which one? Chapter 38, 39, or 40?
Political troubles in the land. Page 163.
Hold on. Okay, that's page 164. 164, chapter 42.
Okay, yeah.
Scroll 10.
Yeah.
It reads, my apologies.
You cooking.
Now one year around the time of the Passover sacrifice, Galilean pilgrims were traveling through the Samaritan village of Guinea on their way to Jerusalem, when they were seized upon by some hotheads among the population there and were killed. When the news of this arrived in Jerusalem, they threatened a disturbance. So some of the leaders of the pilgrims petitioned Ventidius Cumanus, the Roman procurator of the time, but he was induced by Samaritans with money to do nothing in the matter. The Galileans were greatly displeased with this and began to persuade the multitude of our people to take up arms. And there were certain elements in the crowd, those who follow the way of the dead. One of these was Eleazar, son of Dineas. He led his followers to a Samaritan village in the district of Akravata and slaughtered everyone there in sight. As a result, Cumanus dealt with the zealots, killing many and taking them prisoners. 43. So certain elders and eminently wealthy persons among the people in Jerusalem, seeing what terrifying heights things had reached, thought to go as one group to Yaakov, whom we call James the Just, and said, we entreat you, restrain the people, for they have gone astray in their fury, discussing war and threatening a conflagration which could engulf us all. We entreat you, therefore, to persuade all who have come here for the day of the Passover sacrifice, for we all listen to your persuasion. We, as well as all the people, bear you witness that you are just, and show no partiality to no one. Therefore, persuade the people, and do not entertain erroneous and dangerous opinions. 44. But he said to them, my friends, there is something that you must do first. Tell me this, why do you come to me? Is it because you fear the common people, that the sons of and the daughters of Israel will suffer torture and misery? Is it because you fear being taken away from this holy city, the place of the house of our Elohim? Or is it rather because you fear the loss of your wealth and influence? Is it that you fear losing your comforts and your easy living? If you, man, I'd say definitely this mindset is among our people today. They don't want to lose that, but we'll keep going. If you rich, do not change your ways. Marker. Cease praying noble things for selfish reasons. Then do not expect your selfish appeals to be answered, marker. But if you change heart, then you will see the Most High's mercy will triumph over judgment, and you will be saved. At this there was disquiet among these eminent citizens, so that they said to him, well, then tell us, Yaakov, in other words, known as James the Just, what shall we do? So Yaakov answered them, saying, put away your fine clothes, your precious jewels, and your rings, then fast against the trials to come, and show your repentance by your works. That goes against Pauline Christianity, fam, where he says, not by the works of the law. Moving on. 44:8. Give alms to the poor, and all those who have been widowed and orphaned in these disturbances, be they Jewish or Samaritan. Then truly your prayers will rise like a sweet Savior. Let me see if I can turn this around. Okay, like a sweet Savior, a pleasing offering to our Elohim. Then go before the people and appeal to them. Only then will they understand that man's anger does not serve the Most High's righteous purpose. Whereupon those eminent and wealthy citizens put on sackcloth and heaped ashes upon their heads. Then by all possible means they besought the seditious and persuaded them that they would set before their own eyes the utter subversion of their country and their conflagration of their temple, as well as the slavery marker of themselves, their wives and children. You notice how they don't say servants or captives, they just say slavery, huh?
Correct.
It says of themselves, their wives and their children. The only consequence of what they were doing, and they beseeched them to change their minds, to cast away their weapons, and for the sake of the future be quiet and return to their own homes. After this manner calmed somewhat, the Samaritans, still seeking a vengeful justice, appealed to the governor of Syria, Eumedes Quadratus in Caesarea. Quadratus had come and his Jewish prisoners beheaded and sent them together with the delegation of Samaritans and Jews to Rome, where Roman Emperor Claudius heard the case. He banished Cumanus for letting the situation get out of hand and executed 3 of the Samaritans who were innocent of any crime. Scroll 11, the prayer of Jacob the Pious on behalf of the people. We never said that you say this ecclesiastical history. Go ahead,
Yeah, we're gonna go jump over to 168 now. The Jacob's, Jacob's preaching to Clement. You can go ahead, King.
Okay.
What was you finna say now?
I was gonna say, remember this was chronicled in Eusebius' ecclesiastical history, but here this is a little more detailed.
Correct.
All right. I think it was Eusebius' ecclesiastical history. I think it was 223 to 224. All right. This is in Eusebius. I'll write this out. Eusebius, ecclesiastical history. To those who want to know the reference of where it comes from, that this was not chronicled in Luke's book of Acts. If it was accurate, you know what I'm saying? Why is it not captured in there? A lot of this ugly history, right?
Correct.
I believe it was 223. So most people recognize that most of Acts is all about Paul. Most of it, right? The rest is just about a little bit about the apostles. The rest is about Paul. Moving on. This is what I'm reading from, fam, so you guys can see the reference. The Exhortations. Okay. We are in the section called the Book of Jacob the Pious, son of Clopas. Okay, and it reads, Scroll 12, Jacob's preaching to Clement. One day near to the time of the festival of lights, it came to pass that our Jacob was leaving the temple in the evening, having spent the whole day in prayer. And there was a young man who would come up to Jerusalem to seek out Jacob. So he took hold of the mantle. At this, Jacob turned around to see who it was and who had done this. The young man bowed to him and said, Please do not be afraid. So Jacob said to him, The peace of our Elohim be with you. And the young man, all the while maintaining hold of his mantle and keeping his head bowed low, answered all the people in the city, say that you are holy and a wise man. They say that you are holy and a wise man. Everyone.
King froze up. Hold on. Let me try to invite him back. Hold on.
Hey, man, I don't even know what happened, man. I don't even know what happened. It just like kicked me off.
Yeah, I know. You good. You good. You back in effect. So, where we? Can you hear me?
We were right here. We were on page 169.
I'm gonna show you where you cut off at. Start back at where it say,
I think it says he turned around to see who the young man was and bowed him and said, Please do not be afraid. So Jacob said to him, The peace of our Elohim be with you. And the young man, all the while maintaining hold of his mantle, keeping his head bowed low, answered all the people in this city, Say that you are holy and a wise man, that everyone attends to your words. But Jacob said to him, If you were to show as much awe and reverence for the Most High as you now show for the least of the Most High servants, believe me, the kingdom of Elohim will be fulfilled tomorrow. So Jacob invited him to his house so that they could freely talk beyond the ears of the moment's spies. And the brothers prepared a meal for them, and Jacob asked them in. Basically, Jacob is James the Just, okay? So in case you guys don't know that, I'm going to write this out. Jacob, in case y'all don't know, equals James the Just. Because people may not know, who is this Jacob? equals James the Just. James the Just, okay, the brother of the Messiah. For people who may not know who this is, who may not be aware that was his actual name. Why did they change his name to James? I don't know why they did that, but we'll keep going. Right here, so basically Yaakov, or James the Just, asked the young man whose name was Clement, tell me, what troubles weigh so heavily on your soul? So Clement answered and said, I have lived in Rome for most of my life, in Rome, that harlot of nations. Like I said, being bond, then we talk about Revelation, right? Who the harlot was. We'll keep going. And the city of harlots. The rich practice fornication liberally, living a life of debauchery and deceit. That city is a city of living death, where human beings are less than chattel, and where man is taught to love violence and death. He is pulled in every direction except the one which he needs for his soul to live. Rome, whose law determines that 400 innocent slaves can be put to death for the actions of one guilty slave. Remember, the Hebrew law says one person is supposed to be dying for the people's sins, right?
Correct.
Moving on. And then it says, runs her affairs like a slaughterer runs his slaughterhouse. For the foundation stone is death herself, disgorging her vanities upon the peoples of the earth. The citizen there merely exists each week so that he can serve the needs of the next, and the poor struggle through one day so that they can repeat their struggle the next. They live in despair under wicked landlords, packed like donkeys into small rooms, out high and fragile, rotten tenements. Each day in that city, I sought answers to life, but I found only despair. So I turned to the stars and saw the astrologers. Remember, you guys, this is Clement. He's asking and inquiring in the likeness of truth and the Most High through Yaakov. So this is the conversation they're having, right? So now he's seeking out, what does he say? Stars, astrologers, that I might thereby find assurances in what is to come. But then I found no certainty in the nature of things that was told. So Yaakov, aka James the Just, said to Clement, I shall tell you the exact nature of astrology. If you were to go to one astrologer and tell him that such a misfortune befell you at a certain time, and that you wish to learn what stars would have caused such a fate to befall you, he will no doubt answer you that such and such a malignant star was ruling your days, or that a certain star was in conjunction with another, and that this is what brought about the misfortune. After that, if you were to go to another astrologer, but this time telling him the opposite, that such and such good fortune has blessed you, and all the while taking care to say that happened at the exact time and date that you told the misfortune befell you, you will see what figures he will invent for you to prove what alignments came into being that brought about your good fortune. For astrologers adapt whatever they have and make it fit for the circumstances. You guys can see I've clearly read a lot of this material, but let's get it in. It says 7. So what we're talking about here is this. Astrologers use whatever they can, what's common and current, to somehow prophesy to people deceitfully, is what he's saying. So if you say this, they're going to say that. If you say that, they're going to say this. This is what James is saying. He said the discrepancy does not proceed from the unskillfulness of either astrologer, but rather from the inborn errancy of the entire system itself. For the stars have no power over the freedom of our wills. They cannot foretell a birth or a death, nor the rise of a king or the fall of a kingdom, and they certainly cannot give counsel on the course of one's life.
So stop right there, Aki. Didn't in the book of Matthew they were supposed to tell the Messiah's birth by a star?
That's the first thing I was thinking. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm cool, Aki. Go ahead, finish. Yeah.
But see, remember when it said Deuteronomy 18, there's gonna be one coming like Moses?
Yeah.
Was there some type of star prophecy with Moses?
Nope.
Bing bong.
Did Moses have a virgin birth?
Nope. Did he have biological parents?
Yup.
Was Moses a prophet?
Yup.
Was the Messiah a prophet?
Yup.
Bing bong. And so we're seeing what we call discrepancies when you start to study it in more historical detail, fam. Okay, about these affairs. Okay, let me see. So where did we leave off at? 54?
Correct.
So I want to give you guys a reference to show proof that Clement is quoted, I believe, by Paul. So that way they know who is this Clement.
I think it's Ephesians 4:3 or Philippians 4:3.
I think it is Ephesians 4:3. Philippians. So that way they're going to know that this is an actual, an actual person that turned out to be one of the bishops in Rome later. All right, being under the authority of the he's actually one of the ones that was actually authorized. He was way more authorized than Paul. Way more authorized than Paul. And they actually took his letters away out of the church. His letters to the Corinthians, if those don't know, were being read in the early first century, but they took them out for some reason. Let me see. I want to give them a reference right fast of this. Letters of Clement to the Corinthians. So that way, another reference to this, they can see it themselves.
Oh, go ahead, Ken.
That this was a redaction to the Corinthians, that this is something that should have been in the so-called Renewed Covenant books, but many people may not know that they took them out. So I'll share that with the chat. So that way they're going to know that was, what do we say? That was Philippians 4:3. All right. And this is an authentic Bishop of Rome. All right. That many people may not be aware of. All right. That he is very authorized. He was adjured before all, basically. Okay. Let's see, where are we? All right. Just want to give a reference to that. All right. I want to be able to support by second and third witness who this Clement is to those who might be inquiring. You know, oh, what are these dudes talking about? Who is this Clement cat? I'm giving you one with Paul, and I'm going to give you another one with history. Okay. First epistle of Clement. Okay. This was to the Corinthians. This was actually authorized, and it should have been canon. And many people may not be aware of this. I'll share this with the chat. I'll even give them Encyclopedia Britannica if people don't like the reference of Wikipedia, because people tend to try to minimize Wikipedia. I tell people, you got to judge rightfully with Wikipedia, because not all Wikipedia has 100% accurate material. Some things have to be really looked at. Some things they have are good, and some things are not so good. And I would tell anybody just to be mindful of that. If they choose to use a source of Wikipedia, search the sources. And I'm going to put encyclopedia. I'll give you an encyclopedia, and then we'll get going further on into the read. Okay? I want to give you an Encyclopedia Britannica, Letters of Clement, because everybody, who is a sleuth, I'm sure they're going to want basically second and third witness about what it is that we're saying about Clement and why it wasn't allowed part of the, let me see. I'm trying to find this Encyclopedia Britannica reference here so they can see what it is I'm saying. Let me see. Catholic Encyclopedia. I don't want to use a Catholic Encyclopedia. I just want to use a regular encyclopedia. Wikipedia is good. Encyclopedia.com. Clement 1. I'll try this one. All right. I want to give somebody something to click on. So, because some folks, if we just tell them stuff, I don't think they're really going to look at it. You know what I mean? I think it's better if we show it to them in a visual. That's just me, though. I gave Wikipedia. I gave Paul. And I'll give you this one. All right? For something for people to research for themselves. All right? I do believe in substantiating a topic with a testimony historical of 2 or 3 witnesses. Okay. Moving on. All right, we're reading in the book of Jacob the Pious. All right, we're reading from scroll 12. Yaakov's preaching to Clement, chapter 54. At the same time as Clement admired Yaakov, or who we call James the Judge, his face was downcast. He said to him, I am not as fortunate as others who are learned or eloquent in speech, nor practice in the ways of religion. For these skills escape me, and I am utterly envious of those who see what I cannot. So Yaakov took pity on him, or James the Just, the brother of the Messiah, and said, be content with the path that is set before you, the abilities that have come to you from the Most High. For it is a drop of water envious of the sky it comes from, or a grain of sand jealous of the mountain on which it rests? Is a thistle ever mindful of the tree it could have been, or does a shower regret the storm? It never was. So then if these tiny things which the Most High has created in the Most High's infinite wisdom are content with their station and do not covet things mightier and greater, why should we, who are made a little lower only than the angels, be anxious over things that will never be? Therefore, do not fret over those greater than ourselves, nor covet their skills or their lot. Everything and everyone has their honored place at the Most High's table. And no one is forgotten or left short by our Father in heaven. Chapter 55. Want me to keep going?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, King.
Okay, so Clement, having listened to all this, was greatly heartened and said, I have confidence that my journey here has not been wasted, for For I have traveled a great distance for many months to obtain answers from you. But Jacob, who we call James the Just, counseled him, saying, do not trust the man or woman who claims that they know all things. For there is only one who knows all things, the one who also made all things. For if one such the master declared that he knew not the day or the hour, marker, right? Didn't somebody say he knew not the day or the hour?
Yeah, sure.
Right? All praises. Whose signs he foretold, nor even the angels in heaven, instead reserving such knowledge to our heavenly Abba alone. No one on earth should then account it a disgrace to be ignorant of some things. For even our master had the courage to say, I don't know. And I want to say that was, where was that? That was in Matthew? Let's give a reference to that. What he just said right there, as far as not knowing the day or the hour. He says that day and the hour knoweth no man. Let me see.
Matthew 24 and 36.
Matthew 24 and 36. All right, so what he's saying is, even the Messiah reserved that for the Most High. All right, we'll just put that in the chat. Matthew 24, 36, to give a reference on what it is that Jacob said, so that way people don't think it's being sacrilegious. The Messiah said it himself that he didn't know. Matthew 24, 36, correct?
Correct.
I'm reserving this for people who want to believe that the Messiah didn't know something is not considered sacrilegious because the Messiah said it himself. Okay? All right, let me see if I can try to print that up. I mean, put it in the chat.
I got you, Joaquin. I'm putting it in the chat.
Okay.
I got you.
Moving on. So it says, therefore, from what little I know, I will answer what the Holy One has deemed fit to give me, and place in this unworthy vessel. For I am what I am only because of the Adonai. 56. Then Jacob said, if we wish to have confidence in the things which are to come, we must first learn to have confidence in the only one who knows what is to come. At this, we're reading in book of Jacob the Pious. The name of this section is called Scroll 12, Jacob's preaching to Clement out of the Exhortations, chapter 56. We're in verse 2. At this, Clement said to him, how then might I proceed to friendship of the Creator? And Jacob said, if we wish to proceed to friendship of the Creator, I'm going to read this slowly with emphasis. I'll read it again. And Jacob said, let's go back to verse 2. At this, Clement said to him, how then might I proceed to friendship of the Creator? And Jacob, a.k.a. James the Just, said, if we wish to proceed to friendship of the Creator, we must learn the process by which the Most High continues to work in the Most High's creation. For the Most High's friendship is secured by living well and obeying the Most High's will. Since the Most High's will is the law of all that live. Therefore, seek the Most High with all your heart and with all your mind and with all your soul and with all your might, and do it with mercy, justice, and humility. I believe this is in Deuteronomy. I believe it's 6 verses 4 through 9. This is also known as a Tephilim and Mezuzah scroll. In case of those of you guys don't know, that were carried by the priests of the Dead Sea sect. But we'll keep going.
And notice how also the Yaakov, the mysteries, or Old Testaments. They're going to be teaching Old Testaments only. They ain't coming nothing from the New Testament. Ain't going to sound nothing like Paulism, Christianity, Greco-Roman. Everything that Jacob, James the Just, is going to say is going to come straight from the Old Testament. Go ahead, King.
All praises. Solid scholarship. It says, okay, therefore seek the Most High's will with all your heart. Okay, I just read that. 6, and draw near to those who love the Most High. So what does that mean? Make your society with those who really, truly love the Most High with all their heart, all their soul, all their might, and all their mind. It says, with mercy, justice, and humility, and draw near to those who love the Most High, that your soul might be uplifted by their example. For the glory of the Most High is reflected in those who love the Most High and seek in earnest to do His will. 57. You want to take it over, or you want me to keep going?
Keep going, King. I'm 2 hours in.
57. What's up?
You know, I'm 2 hours in. You can keep going.
I know you is. I thank you for hooking me up yesterday. You was helping me out yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand how this can be draining
Yeah.
of your vocal cords and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And getting materials and stuff and pulling books and stuff.
Yeah.
They just sit back just reading. It's like entertainment to them. They just sit back reading it. We over here, Drew, doing our best going back and forth to keep it all together. And when we're done, man, your voice box be burnt off. So, now, if you pay attention, if you ever pay attention to radio broadcasts and news broadcasts, they always have like 2 or 3 people up there, even if it's for a 2-hour segment. If you listen to radio broadcasts and stuff, even if it's for a 2 or 4 hour segment, because they want to make sure that the panelists maintain their voice box for the next days to come. Because if you do too much, the next day it's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
How much water you drink.
Yeah, straight up.
So that's why it's good to have other people up here with you. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
To get it in. So let's do it. 57. So I can dig it. 57. Boy, he said I've been up here 2 hours banging it out. Boy, come on. It says, then Yaakov continued this matter and said, in order to understand the Creator's righteous purpose, I need to recount to you the story of the Most High's creation. Okay? In the beginning, when the Most High made the heaven and the earth. But I want to hold for a minute. I want to explain to somebody this, okay? To those who may not be aware, if you have the Ascents of James, it's a book, basically a chronicle of Clement having an interaction with James the Just. This is the Ascents of James. We're kind of going into it, where basically Clement is asking Yaakov the history of things because he's sick and tired of the Roman way, syllogisms where they ask questions, philosophy, they're over tyrannical ways, right? All of these different gods, polytheism. And so he was intrigued by this messianic figure when he heard, I think it was Barnabas in Rome preaching, this Messiah who was bringing people together in truth and healing people. And so what was happening was he was being sent over to Yaakov. And now when he's asking Yaakov these things right here, Yaakov is answering him. And this is what is referred to as the Ascents of James. All right. And the Ascents of James, I'm going to write it out. It's also in the recognitions. And it's going to look like book 1. Book 1, chapters 33 through 70 or 71. Okay, the recognitions. To those who may not know, the Ascents of James is also in the recognitions, or other words, what is known as the Nazarene Acts of the Apostles. Okay, let me get this reference out. To those who may not know, man, this sounds familiar. Okay. That's where it's coming from. So this is actually a conjoinment in the Nazarene Acts of the Apostles, book 1, chapters 33 through 70, of James explaining to him the history of the earth and everything in Israel up until their day. All right? So those who may not know that, that's the actual book right there. I think that is one of the best books that is shown on the screen because what it does is it gives you a reference of the Latin and the Syriac. Excuse me. On one side, I think it gives you Latin on the left and it gives you the Syriac on the right. When we talk about redactions and edits, this should have been a part of our renewed covenant so-called canon, but I believe Constantine took this stuff out, if you ask me. Let me see. So this is a similar reference here, and I'll give you the one that he was showing on the screen in a minute. As I'm giving you guys witnesses, I'm giving you references to those who want to inquire and want to get the books, okay? And then the next one was the Ascents of James. Those who inquire, I'll give you a reference right here on the screen. To those who want to inquire of it, this is actual academia, scholarly material that has been going on since the early 1st century. That is not in our common collection, basically, of what we call today's common canon. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see. We'll go to Amazon. Amazon, I believe, has it. This is the one about Forrest, I believe. Forrest, right?
Yeah.
All right. We'll go to the official site because I think they have it. All right. For those who question where we're getting this from, I want to at least give them a reference if they ever choose to want to reference this. Okay. And I believe it only comes in a paperback. Damn, it's only about $23. So if you have time and money to invest, please take the time and money to invest. You know, if we're serious in our walk, all right, I hope and pray that we learn to make necessary investments. So we're just supporting it with a reference that in the Nazarene Acts of the Apostles, this is in book 1, chapters 33 through 70, Okay, but if you want the direct reference of the Exhortation James, the one he showed on the screen, that's this one here that I'm showing from Amazon. That has been very scholarly, critically analyzed. Let me make sure that was right. Make sure that's right. Yeah, okay, that's right. Okay, moving on. So I like supporting it as I go. So people have these questions, I want to answer them, so that way they don't, get caught up in that. They can see what it is and look at it for themselves. Okay, moving on. So we're in 57:2. So to reiterate, Clement is asking him about the Most High and what's going on. James is answering him about what the true teaching is. Okay. Then Yaakov continued in this matter and said, in order to understand the Creator's righteous purpose, I need to recount to you the story of the Most High's creation. In the beginning, when the Most High made the heaven and the earth, the Most High divided the fabric of the universe into two parts. Although it was still but one substance, the reason of the division was this, that the upper portion might afford a dwelling for the angels as a dominion of light, and the lower portion to human beings. And the Most High fixed a firmament between them. And the Most High set the sun, the moon, and the stars in their places, and everything else that travels across the heavens. The Most High determined their boundaries and arranged the Most High's works in an eternal order. That's a marker in an eternal order. Their dominion the Most High fixed for all generations. The celestial bodies neither hunger nor grow weary. And they do not. Now, pay attention. Now, remember where
Clement
supposedly in Genesis 18, when these angels came down and wanted food.
Yeah.
Where it says right here, the celestial bodies neither hunger nor grow weary. So that is a falsehood.
So look, we see the sun don't get hungry, the moon don't get hungry, stars don't get hungry, the sky don't get hungry. So therefore, and the Creator is above all that. So therefore, he don't get hungry.
Come on. So how is it he wants blue blood and fat?
He is full blown. Yeah, he's full blown spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've even wondered when they say things like he's sitting on his throne. I've even wondered about that.
What throne?
I've wondered about that.
That's a big throne, huh?
If he's sitting on a throne, he's a man.
He's a man.
So that's why I say people ain't gonna get what it is that we're saying when we're working back a lot of the ideology of those who wrote the book. So we're not trying to be sacrilegious.
Zeus might got a throne.
Authenticity of what's been written to us. Go ahead. What'd you say?
Zeus might got a throne.
I'm just saying. Pharaoh. Right now, I agree with Yosef. He's saying it could be an allegory or it could be a likeness of something that he saw, and they're just trying to make it normal to those who are down here. It's possible.
It's possible.
But I that's why I look at it now like, man, this is tough now when you start hearing this stuff. But we'll keep going. It says, and the Most High fixed the firmament. Okay, moving on. He says the celestial bodies neither hunger nor grow weary, and they do not abandon their task. So like he said, the sun always comes up, the stars always appear, the moon, right? All of the ordinances the Most High has set, these are my words, are still in perpetual motion. These are my words. Back to the book. They do not crowd one another, and they never disobey the Most High's commands.
Which means there are no fallen angels.
There are all praises. I'll take it. Hey, thank you, Havaya Evangeline. Grace and mercy greetings. She says we're sexy. I try to keep it young. I'm 46. I try to keep it young. I'll give all praises to the Most High.
What happened, Doc? You said what happened?
She says we're sexy. I said all praises to the Most High. It must be the word of the Most High running through us, man. That's making us look, you know what I'm saying? That's keeping that young stuff. But you younger than me, you know what I mean? I'm on the old side. You see, I got these grades right here.
Hey, man. Hey, look, I'm working on my grades too, man. I'm
Come on.
Thank you, sister. Thank you. All praise.
Brother Yosef, another Yosef got me this right here. He got me this shirt. He got me 2 shirts with this, and it's got my fringes on it, and it's clean. I absolutely love it, man. I wear it when I rock out.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I like representing.
All right.
Grace and peace.
I like that. That's grace and peace.
Yeah, it's cool, man. My brother Yosef, he's in our group, but he doesn't comment much. He says he doesn't like interacting with women and stuff because he believes it's what's it called? He believes it's like it interferes with coming to wisdom and stuff because of men and their minds and stuff. I say, well, to each his own. To each his own. I ain't mad at him.
I ain't mad at you.
I'm mad at him. So I think he does just a lot of watching, doesn't really comment a lot in our little group. But we'll keep going.
Yeah.
It says in 7, we're in 57:7. Then the Holy One looked upon the earth and filled it all with the Most High's good things, with all kinds of living organisms. The Most High covered its surface ordering living creatures to be produced from the waters, and then from the red soil of the earth. Then the Holy One created human beings out of the dust of the earth, to which they shall one day return. Remember, you guys, this is Jacob, James the Just, explaining to Clement the history of the Hebrew people, Adam, man, and creation, okay? All right. Where are we? Okay. Then the Holy One created human beings out of the dust of the earth, to which they shall all one day return. Like all living things, the Most High allotted them a fixed number of days, but Elohim made them in the Most High's own image, and so granted them dominion over everything on the earth, that they might practice careful stewardship over the beasts and the birds, over the fish of the sea, and over everything that crawls upon the earth. When human beings were created, the Most High did not give them knowledge of their origin, nor origin of the universe. Instead, he gave them use of the five senses of the body. Now, this goes into chakras. People that be talking about chakra crap, that chakra stuff, no disrespect to anybody who does. He did not give us his knowledge nor origin, right, of the universe. Instead, he gave them the use of five senses of the body, but as a sixth, the Most High instilled in them the gift of the mind as a seventh. Reason as the interpreter of one's faculties. Like I said, no disrespect, you guys. We don't do Hinduism. Yet with all this, human beings looked up at the majesty of the Most High's works, at all the things which the Holy One had made, the sun, the moon, and the stars, and instead of worshiping their creator, they worshipped that which had been created. So began humanity's descent down the wrong paths, the one mistake being compounded by the next. First, humanity invested rocks, rivers, and trees with the powers of spirits. Then they imposed upon the wild beasts qualities of good and evil, which were not theirs to possess. Even attaching to them the personalities of the Most High spirits and magical powers, people sought to control the world and the beasts around them through rituals, chants, and incantations. And they prayed to these animals to give them their strength. I want to turn this around, but you can see this.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Right here. They gave their strength and power, even imagining that they should drink the blood. You guys see that?
Yeah.
Of these animals, in order to imbibe their vigor, and might not knowing, so basically they're doing this to what? They're doing this as a form of witchcraft.
Yeah.
To do what? To try to get their strength and stuff as a pagan ritual, right? Not knowing that true strength and power comes from the reverent awe of the Holy One. Then they began to seek the answers to life from the celestial bodies. Remember, we're talking about chakras and fallen angels, or that mindset, right? Which in themselves have no voice. So that they're trying to look towards the stars and things like that, and we call astrology, astronomy, all that stuff, right? Which in themselves have no voice. Thinking that wisdom and learning comes from the study, of the bodies that wander the heavens. If they had instead sought the Holy One in earnest, they would have known the true living source of all wisdom and knowledge. Thereafter, they engage in the worship of imagined spirits. Now, pay attention. What does that say?
Imagine.
We talked about that, right?
Imagine. I tried to tell everybody that, fam. Just because you see it written on some stones, because you see it carved out, don't make it real. Fam, them folks had a weird imagination, fam. I'm talking about I can go build a stone and say and carve it into a giant and put some wings and a horseback on you and tell you that this nah, bro. Them folks had a weird imagination. They really, if you look in the Bible, the word fallen angel and Nephilim only appears a few amount of times. That should point a red flag. But the rest of the Bible is about idols. You don't see the Most High getting on their head about fallen angels. You see them getting on their head about idols. You don't see fallen angels in your 10 commandments. What you see is making graven images and idols in your commandments. These folks idolize the creation and not the creator. And so here we have 2,000 years later, 4,000 years later, where they come up with these findings and statues and got you really thinking that these things really existed. No, they carved these things with their hands and they worship them. About the only, like, that's what James told them. Y'all went from statue, y'all, at least y'all worship the king. Y'all went from worshiping an actual man to actual worshiping things that can't speak or give you anything, So again, man, it was just a figure of their imagination. These big beasts, giants tall as sea, never existed, fam. Never existed.
Worshiping the creation and not the creator.
There you go. Go ahead, King. I'm done. Sorry.
No. instead sought the Holy One in earnest, okay, now I'll go back. It says, then they began to seek answers to life from the celestial bodies, which in themselves have no voice, thinking that wisdom and learning comes from the study of the bodies that wander the heavens. We talk about astrology, astronomy, and all that stuff. If they had instead sought the Holy One in earnest, they would have known the true living source of all wisdom and knowledge. Thereafter, they engaged in the worship of imagined spirits and practice of magic arts, offering bloody sacrifices to gain control over the living world, which the Most High alone had created and has power over. They set up idols and worshiped them, inventing myths and histories for lumps of stone, clods of clay, and blocks of wood. When they saw that their lower gods could not speak, not being satisfied with these deceptions, they sought to create gods of men. And thereafter the princes and kings of the nations were worshipped as gods. Remember, now we're getting into rulers and stuff. Now we're getting into rulers, Nebuchadnezzar, Pharaoh, and Greeks and Romans. Let's go back. When they saw that their gods could not speak, not being satisfied with these deceptions, they sought to create gods of men. And thereafter the princes and kings of nations were worshipped as lower gods. And this fraud was even more disastrous than the former, for the former gods could not speak and therefore could do no injury. But these men, being drunk on their own power and on the fervor which they were worshipped, and remember, police officers, judges, politicians, presidents, they're all what? Drunk on their own power.
Yeah.
Right? And people look at them like they're these super elevated emissaries of righteousness, right? When they're the most corrupt and abominable. But we'll keep going. It says, but these men being drunk on their own power and on the fervor in which they were worshipped, made poisonous proclamations and edicts. Hey, name me a poisonous proclamation and edict that you know a ruler has done claiming that he was a god. Give me one that you know that they tried to do to implement across all their nation and kingdom that you know, biblically speaking. Which one do you remember?
What you mean?
Like you know how some of these rulers would make some horrible, abominable decree throughout all the land because they believed they were like God? Like how let me see.
Constantine.
Like how Pharaoh made a decree, like if y'all can't interpret these visions of dream, all y'all gonna die.
All y'all gonna die, correct. Yeah.
You know, Nebuchadnezzar was, if you don't worship the psaltery, if you don't fall down when you see this statue and the psaltery and the trumpet, right? If you don't fall down and worship, you're gonna die, or we're gonna throw you into the fire. You see what I'm saying?
Correct.
These rulers were abominable. And it says they made poisonous proclamations and edicts and wrought havoc and murder upon peoples that worshiped them. Almost everyone. Remember Antiochus, right? Herod, a lot of these Roman rulers, Hadrian, Titus, Vespasian, all of these jokers, these crazy jokers did what? Made poisonous proclamations and edicts and wrought havoc and murder upon the peoples that worshiped them. 59. Then at a time when the world was overspread with these deceptions, I'm at 59, and the earth was threatening to forever depart from the path which the Most High had intended for it, from the first stroke of creation, the Most High chose one man to be the messenger of the Most High's true people. In the 20th generation after Adam, there was a certain wise man, a citizen of Ur. Let's get it in. The citizen of Ur, this man Abraham by name, being endowed with the faculty of reason with which the Most High had gifted to all human beings. Of course, we're talking about Abraham. Fam, remember, this is Jacob having a discussion with Clement, explaining to him the history of the universe, and he's going through the history, basically.
Hey, I noticed too. I want you to notice something too. Notice in this epistle, he's not going to speak of no fallen angel. He jumped straight to Abraham.
I haven't seen one yet.
He jumped straight to Abraham.
He just went straight through. I didn't see no fallen angels. Correct. This man Abraham by name, being endowed with the faculty of reason, with which the Most High had gifted to all human beings, saw the order and magnitude of the stars and the celestial bodies in the heavens, and he recognized something greater than these bodies themselves. But just as we praise the potter for his work and not the pot, Abraham saw how the answers so sorely sought by humankind were not to be found, not in the worship of creation, nor by the adoration of the created things, but rather through the solemn acknowledgement of the Creator, and that all things were regulated by the Most High's providence. Thereupon an angel standing by him in a vision began to expound upon those things which he was beginning to perceive. So because of that, the angel came to him and gave him wisdom, and not the stars, right? And astrology and all that, right? Through his intellect. The angel also showed him what belonged to his descendants and posterity forever. Therefore, Abraham, when he desired to learn the causes of things, and was intently pondering upon what had been told him, the Holy One came to him in glory, who alone knows the hearts and true purpose of humanity, and disclosed to him all things which he desired to know. The Most High taught him the knowledge of the one true Elohim, and gave him insight into the origin of the world, and likewise its end, when the veil dividing heaven and the earth would be dissolved. The Most High showed him the immortality of the soul, and the manner of life which was pleasing to the Most High. Elohim declared the reward of the good and the punishment of the evil. Sorry for moving around. All to be regulated by righteous judgment. And having given them all this information plainly and sufficiently, the Most High's glory departed again to the Most High's invisible abodes. 61. So you see that in the generations while humanity worshipped only animals or idols, drinking blood, and bowing down to lifeless stone, or else to the sun, moon, and the stars, the Most High's great purpose and design was ultimately hidden from them. But when one man sought the true, sought the one true living Elohim, and desired earnestly to know the one who created all things, then thereafter all knowledge was revealed to him. Do you guys see that? So it wasn't revealed to those who worshiped the creation, drank blood, did this witchcraft, did this sorcery. It was to the one who came to the Most High and acknowledged him as the ultimate awe and reverence of all of these things in creation. Do you see that? And it was given to him. He became the Most High's friend and was counted as righteous through him. The nations of the earth, where are we? The nations of the earth would be blessed. The path of the Most High's purpose be maintained. Scroll 13. All right, so.
We on scroll 13?
Yes, sir.
I take it from there.
Okay.
Peace and blessings, Aki. Yeah.
Peace and blessings.
And I noticed how too, man, in certain things they try to make Abraham out to do burnt offers and sacrifice of a Holocaust. I was reading the Dead Sea Scrolls earlier. They never actually told you what he actually sacrificed. They just made a Holocaust. And if
did you notice he didn't mention anything about that so-called event with them angels came in that calf? Did you notice that?
That's what I was telling you. Yeah. None of that. He didn't do none of that. He ain't
jumped right over it.
Jump right over. No. Yeah.
Because he just said the heavenly bodies we were talking about before don't even hunger.
Yeah, don't even hunger. So why would they come ain't on his story talking about feed us a calf?
Hey yo, Abraham, man, I'm the Most High's angel, man. Hey, give a brother barbecue lamb, dog. Come on, man. Let me get a Diet Coke with some fries. No. Let me get a Pepsi one. Hey, Sarah. Hey, hold on. Hey, Sarah, man. The Most High said he wants some barbecue ribs. Okay, a side of fries, and he said he want a Pepsi one. But what y'all say? Y'all want bread? Y'all want water? You want me to wash your feet?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Hey, Sarah. Hey, make a Thanksgiving turkey, cuz. This is what they've done, and we believe it. And we believe it. We didn't know. We wouldn't have known.
Ain't seen that one angel come down here and eat not one time. Ain't seen that one giant. Everything y'all see on YouTube and Netflix. I can go find all that on Power Rangers, Cartoon Network. It's all Greco-Roman mindset that they've been feeding us. You will never see no angel. Yeah.
I want some smoked barbecue, cuz.
Yeah.
I want some smoked barbecue, Lo.
Man, they waiting on UFOs right now, Aki. Right now. They waiting on UFOs right now.
I want some hush puppies.
All that.
Hey, I've heard that. What is it called? The chariots are here. The chariots.
Yeah.
The chariots are coming.
Yeah.
You see people making these posts where they see these things in the sky and
Yeah.
they're scaring everybody.
Scaring everybody.
I be sitting back like, man, come on.
Yeah.
Show me one event where you see somebody literally getting into one of these things in front of everybody and going up without some type of digital. I have a hard time with a lot of this stuff. I do. I have a hard time with a lot of this stuff when they be doing this stuff. Because they can read it from the book that they have.
Yeah.
Right? Can't they do it? They can pull it out of the book and say right there.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Scroll 13.
Let's go.
All right, scroll 13. Yaakov tells Clement the story of the Hebrew people from Abraham to the Babylonian exile. When Clement had heard all these things, he was most eager to learn the history of the Israelite people and of their generation with God of Abraham. So Yaakov related the generation of the Israelites, saying, when Abraham was still called Abraham, before God swore God's eternal covenant with him. He had two sons. One was his servant Eleazar, his adopted, whose descendants joined with the Medes and Persians. Some of them were also joined with their neighbors, the Baramins. Remember, you were talking about the Baramins, which is Abraham, basically, the seed of Abraham. All right. And the others were called Ishmael, from whom the nations of the Arabs proceeded. Okay. And some of those who lived in Arabia were scattered to Egypt because they were near it. Hence, some Indians and Egyptians have come to observe the rite of the circumcision, but in the passing of the time, the purity of the rite has been lost. Now, there's another thing I've been noticing too. I don't believe that it mentions Abraham having a second wife or a third wife. It just tells you about his children. All right. And James and all of them, the Essenes, do not believe that Abraham had multiple wives. They believe all his children came from one wife, Sarah. All right.
Right.
Because they were supposed to have been faithful stewards of the Most High. In order you to be considered a faithful steward in front of the Most High, from the Essenes and so-called James and the Nazarenes, you had to have one wife or no wife at all. All right.
Either the same woman or it was at different times.
Oh, yeah.
You know, after one had died or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. You had to be vegan, hands clean of shedding blood, a lover of truth, not swearing, things like that, and look here. Let's keep going. It says, and some of those who lived in Arabia were scattered to Egypt because they were near it. Hence, some of the Indians and Egyptians have come to observe the rite of circumcision, but in the passing of time, the purity of the rite has been lost. Yet God promised to Abraham promises were not to be completed in these two lineages. The Holy One delayed in the order to deepen Abraham's faith and to teach him many things over the course of time. He learned most of all that we mortals cannot force God's hand. The Great One acts in God's own time and on the day of God's own choosing. For those who are just now coming into the chat, this is from the book of Jacob the Pious. This is Jesus' brother, James the Just, and a lot of this commentary comes from the Ascent of James, Ecclesiastes, Eusebius, Clementine Homilies, 1st and 2nd Peter, as well as Galatians and other literatures. Okay, second and third Winch's stories. Those who understand James was the bishop and leader of Jerusalem, Acts chapter 15, who Paul and Peter and everyone had the answer to concerning the laws of Torah. And we're showing how the bishop of Jerusalem, James, Yaakov, was Torah-based. This is what changed my life. This is why I am so-called what you want to consider Old Testament only. If you want to consider that, only go to the New Testament to prove that the Old Testament is within the doctrines, all right? So understand that James the Just, yes, was Old Testament only. We ask you all the time, if the New Testament was not written at that time, what book were they reading from? What book were they carrying? All right? Hopefully we get to that part in a certain amount of time to show that, because James was a cold brother. If Jesus was cold, if James was cold, you got to know Jesus was cold. If Jesus was cold, you got to know James was cold. Okay, these are all Nazarene Essenes. Let's keep going. All praises. However, chapter 63. Then Abraham was 90 years old. God renamed him Abraham to signal that he was to receive a new destiny. He would be the father of many nations. And God made an eternal covenant with him that God would give him and his descendants the land of Canaan forever. As a sign of that promise, God required that he and all the men of the household be circumcised. God furthermore indicated that God's covenant would not be passed down through his existing years, but in one yet to be born. Because he was just. He was just. Listen to that. He was just. His lawful wife Sarah would have a son, even though she was barren. She had been his wife from his youth. It was granted to her to have whom he called Yishak. And Yishak was the father of Yaakov, and Yaakov the father of the 12 sons and the 12 fathers who formed part of the 70 who went down into Egypt. But when, however, there was a famine in Canaan, all their family went into Egypt. Now, That's something I wanted to point out. I also read in the Dead Sea Scrolls. When they went into Egypt in their famine, what they do? They went to go look for corn and grain. Why didn't they slaughter no animals? Why he ain't eat no animals? Now,
there was flesh eating was not allowed.
Correct.
It was abominable.
Correct. If you notice, Aki, also, I'm also bringing out. Also, they also told you how 2 other nations in numbers came down to Egypt when they had famine. Why didn't they eat their animals?
Correct.
Solid. Let's keep going. Whoever. Here we go. Within 400 years, they had multiplied by the blessing and promises of God, but they were then afflicted by oppression and slavery under the Egyptians. But then when they were afflicted, the true prophet Moses was chosen to be sent to them. When the oppressing Egyptians did not allow the Israelites to depart and journey to the land of their ancestors. This is Yaakov, James the Bishop, Jesus Christ's brother, Matthew chapter 13 and 55, giving you the account of Torah. All right. Here we go. They were punished and scourged with 10 plagues in mockery of their false and powerless gods. After this, Moses led them and the people who were so loved of the Holy One from Egypt, along with the mixed multitude. Because of this, the Egyptian people who were left behind conspired in the burning anger with their king. They followed and overtook the Israelites. God made it seem to the Egyptians that the Israelites were directionless and hemmed in on all sides with now nowhere to go. This was so that the Almighty could demonstrate God's great power. All praise. The Egyptians besieged them at the shore of the Sea of the Reeds, and they desired to destroy them by the sword. But when they were about to come near them, God instructed the prophet to strike the waters with his rod. When Moses did this, God parted the Sea of the Reeds into 2. In this manner, the people crossed over, and the multitude of the Egyptians and their arrogant presumptions all followed after him. For when the last of the Israelites had gone up, the last of the Egyptians went down. When the sea, which had been made firm by the command of the Holy One, divided, it rushed back to its former state. And the Egyptians who had pursued them received due punishment in it and died. By these events, the Israelite learns that there is none like the Holy One amongst the pagan gods. Now, this is what I've been telling people. We see that the Holy One of Israel saved our ancestors. Notice how it talked about, notice what it said, learn that there is none like the Holy One amongst the pagan gods. They made Jesus out to be a pagan god. Your Jesus that's supposed to come and save you cannot save you in this life to come or in the next. The only person that can save you is the Holy One of Israel. The Holy One of Israel, so-called, is the one that brought the flood, okay? All right, to get rid of the so-called violence and murderous acts that people were causing on the earth, all right? The Holy One of Israel is the one that created this earth. The Holy One of Israel is one that saved our ancestors from Egypt. If your Jesus did not do any of these things, then your Jesus would not come and save you in the time of come. Again, Jesus came already. He did his job, and he came to save you from yourself, okay? Because man is ignorant, all right? This is why man sins. But after he had died and his spirit had risen to wherever it was supposed to go, all right, it was still left upon the Most High, like it always is, to save who and whomever. He just sends his prophets to do the job that is at hand. But again, the Most High does not need us. We need the Most High, all right? Peace and blessings. Again, they have turned Jesus into a pagan god, all right? Let's keep going. Peace and blessings. All right. It says,
we left off where it says pagan gods, and we remember this with great joy each year at the time of the Passover offering.
Okay.
It's like the middle of the page on the right side of the left page.
Okay, I see it. Okay.
Where it says pagan gods.
Yeah. It says, and we remember this with great joy each year at the time of the Passover. Thank you, King. We recall how God led our ancestors out of Egypt. Let me read that again. We recall how Jesus. Oh, my bad. We recall. Paul? It was Paul?
Paul led us out of Egypt.
Hey, no, the God, the Holy One, the Creator. Let's keep going.
Sure. Okay.
All right. Let's keep going. We recall how God, the Creator, led our ancestors out of Egypt by the remembrance of God's great miracle of redemption and salvation, which would be the term Yahshua, okay? Not the actual person, but salvation, Yahshua is just the word, okay? You can be named after, don't mean that you're the actual salvation, okay? Speaking of his spirit, okay? We are strengthened and renewed each year. Then Moses, by the command of God, who knows everything, but according to Genesis, some account, he don't know everything. He got to come down and see whether something is going down according to the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah. All right. But The God we follow knows everything, ain't got to go nowhere. He already knows and foresees and foretells. Okay, peace and blessings.
Right.
Led the great multitude of Israelites to the desert and wilderness. He abandoned the short way which leads from Egypt to Canaan and led them by the way of the longer way of the desert of the wilderness. Why? So that by the 40 years of the wanderings he might purge the evil manner of life which has grown on them through their long sovereign of Egypt. Aki, let me ask you a question real fast because I noticed this. That's a marker. How old are you, Aki?
46.
46. You've been going through this wilderness for 46 years, my G. I'm 31 going on 32. I'm almost entering into my 40s. Within these 40 years, he has been bringing us through this wilderness, and he has been trying to take every evilness up out of our hearts. Check the age limit, Aki. Check the age range. Go in the mirror, everybody. Check your age range.
I've been traveling through this since I was 6 years old.
See what I'm saying? 40 years, Aki.
Oh man, what's up with these elders, man? They listening, man. I'm you know, this man are getting a little weary on the brother.
Man are getting a little weary.
When we gonna get to the promised land? These people keep, murmuring against the Most High, not listening, always wanting flesh and blood, always complaining. I'm over here off to the side. I don't want to be around them. They, a lot of them are dying and stuff, not listening. I don't want to deal with them, Most High. I'm over here.
Perishing. We almost
been doing this for 40 years.
40 years out.
It's a long time.
It's a long time. Let's keep going. And at another time, be able to temper and change them by the giving of the Torah. At last, they came to the Mount Horeb, and they heard heavenly sounds, the teachers of God, and all 10 proclamations. The first of them is this: that while keeping God's teaching, they should preserve themselves only to Him. We can find that in Genesis 1 when we see Adam only talking to who? The Creator, not Jesus, not Paul, not Zeus. No, the Creator. Let's keep going. And the second, not to make for themselves the image or likeness of anything in heaven or earth to worship. Okay. But when Moses had been gone for 40 years, 40 days, those assembled people who had seen with what power and might Egypt was punished with 10 plagues by God, who had seen the pillar of cloud guide them by day and a pillar of fire by night, who had passed over through a divided sea on 30 dry feet, and who had received heavenly manna for food, as you see heavenly manna.
Go ahead.
And who drank water. So that right there shows. This is why you see the Essenes only drinking water and eating no flesh. As you can see, the Most High provided what? Only water and a form of manna, which tasted like whatever they wanted it to taste like. But it was no animal flesh. So I've been telling people, what did the Most High feed our ancestors for 40 years? He didn't feed them animals. They tried to go to Exodus 16, but they forget Numbers 11, where he destroyed them with the plague of sickness and disease when they ate the birds, the corals. Yeah. Go check it out, Numbers 11. So again, our Father had us eating non-flesh, had us on a plant-based diet, manna from heaven, and water. That's why Jesus said, feed none of these children. Give nothing but these children that are mine water. They drink water. They were baptized and immersed in water. That was in reference to show that you didn't need a sacrificial lamb or any animal to recipiate for your sins. All right. So again, manna and water. 40 years, manna and water. Had them veganed out for 40 years. Why didn't they eat their cattle? What's going on?
Correct.
When Moses delayed, those same people demanded that Aaron make them an image of God, which is not lawful to do, one that would go after their head along their journey. There's another witness. The problem wasn't fallen angels. The problem was idols and images and sacrificing animals and drinking blood. Because angels do not abandon their task. Let's keep going. Along their journey, and Aaron made for them a golden statue of a pistol bull and declared that the Holy One, in fact, was the same as the Egyptian God. Now, our God has no equal to equivalent amongst the pagan gods, nor any form of being that which we can touch or see. Okay, so that kills your hold that Jesus is God. All right, it told you that. Okay, that your God you cannot see. Remember, they seen Jesus. Jesus can't be God. He told you in Torah that man cannot see God, or was he what die? Ain't that what it said? But they walk with Jesus. So if they walk with Jesus, then you think that Jesus is God, therefore they seen God, and that makes Torah of none effect and a lie. Okay, let's keep going.
Another thing I want to keynote on those that are listening is Israel has a problem whenever they're in someone's captivity. They always come out with some form of that nation's pagan heathen idolatry. You know, they always do that. Wherever they go, they bring back with them some form of idolatry from that nation and kingdom that they've been in.
Correct.
And unfortunately, some of us may not know some of this stuff is in some of these books that we're reading.
Correct.
Because how bad it is. I just put a reference of Apis the bull, according to worldhistory.org, that that's why they did it. It wasn't just random why they chose a bull. It was something that had been indoctrinated into them.
When they was in Egypt. And what did he say? He brought them into the wilderness to take this stuff up out of them. He just bring y'all to the wilderness long because he ain't had nothing else better to do. Y'all still had a lot of ingrained evil imagination. Just like if Moses was here now and he wanted to save us from America, it would take so long to get those ingrained imagined evil things that America has taught us. Y'all gonna be looking like where the Burger King, where the McDonald's, where the Subway, where the Chick-fil-A. You know what I'm saying? You know, y'all gonna be looking at Moses crazy because Moses ain't going for none of that. Let's keep.
And I want to veggie back on this. Is where he said we're not supposed to be worshiping the Most High the way that the nations worship their gods. Basically, Deuteronomy 12:30. Okay, Deuteronomy 12:30. I'm gonna give you all.
I love you, man. Dad on live. I love you. I love you. Can you get on? You can get on Facebook.
You on Facebook?
Yeah, I'm finna send it to you so you can watch. Okay, baby. Is that cool? Yeah. I love you. Bye-bye. I love you, man. I'm gonna come see you tomorrow. I'm finna send it to you, baby.
All right.
What's up? What's up, Jacory? Let me see your face, baby.
No, we'll look at hot.
It's all good. I love you.
I love you too, baby. I love you too. I love you too.
I love you too, Jacory.
All right.
Bye, baby.
They're making something in the likeness of what they came out.
What's up, King?
Man, what happened?
I don't know. I'm finna add you back in, King.
All right, but it shows that it cut. It shows that the live video ain't no more.
Okay, let me see.
Yeah, it says it cut off.
Hold on, let me see.
All right, add me back in. See if you got me back in.
Okay.
Being a lifeguard takes discipline and integrity. It's a hard job, but I'm damn proud of the work we do. Do you consider yourself a man of integrity, Chief Greco? I do. Have I had sexual involvements with lifeguards underneath me? Yes, all consensual. But I've never hired someone who was unfit for the job. You were sure that your lifeguards could do the job. But in these 10 drownings, they underperformed, didn't they? Even the most experienced lifeguard can lose a swimmer. It's always a tragedy. A tragedy. Let me ask you, do you sleep over it? Objection. Relevance. A little attitude, please. Huh?
I'll allow it. Move this along.
I'm understaffed. My budget is cut. Every year it gets worse. Okay. Drunks on the beach, people letting their kids wander around, people with no business getting in the water. And you know what happens? And we need to get in, we need to risk our lives, so that is your job. Isn't it? Look at you. Getting a suit and tie. You have no idea what it's like to have people's lives in your hands. Do you? What people don't think about it like this. The ocean is a wilderness. And men like me are the breakwater. The only single barrier between a fun day at the beach and some out-of-shape, stupid person becoming a part of the food chain. And rarely do those life or death moments come down to a matter of seconds. Most of the time, it's IQ points and common sense. Is that why you sent Diego Rodriguez into the water that day? Because you thought you lacked common sense? Objection.
Sustained.
Diego was a drunk who showed up hungover.
You and Aki? You know what? I think they got like a limit, a 3-hour limit, Aki.
But I didn't know there'd be a risk any more than I wanted that kid dead. But that beach and the lives on it are my responsibility. All mine.
Yeah, so you know, no, you know what? I think on Facebook gonna let you do it for like 3 hours.
I don't think so. I've seen people be on here for like 4 or 5. So I don't know about all that.
Yeah. Now I did have to answer a call. My child's mama called me on FaceTime. I don't know if that's what happened, but
That's probably what did it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's probably what did it. I mean, it is what it is. You know, I was gonna say, man, we was getting too deep in it, man. The signal couldn't take it no more.
Hey, the signal couldn't take it no more. Go ahead, Ak. Hey, look, I'm finna finish inviting people in. Go on and talk to them for a minute, but we finna get it back in, man.
Well, what I wanted to finish was Deuteronomy 12 verses 30 to 32. We're being warned, basically, according to the Jabur or the words, that we're not supposed to worship the Most High in the likeness the way that they worship the nations. And so, if we're being told to not worship the Most High the way that the nations, the pagan nations, worship their gods, we had talked about this over the last couple of weeks. They were being told to carry the Ark of the Covenant on their shoulders. When, if you remember, by the Levites, right? If you remember, the Egyptians carried their gods on their shoulders. The Greeks carried their gods on their shoulders. I believe the Romans. I think the Assyrians, the Babylonians. A lot of these groups, these pagan groups, carried their gods on their shoulders. And so, if they were being told to carry the Ark of the Covenant like that on their shoulders, and the likeness of it being, because I've heard people say that's like the Most High, and he's sitting on his throne. I'm like, well, that's in the likeness of basically carrying the gods on their shoulders, as if he's a man sitting on his, like some of these kings that we were talking about before, they rose to the impiety. What did we read before? That they rose to the impiety. It says right here, when they saw that their gods could not speak, not being satisfied with these deceptions, they sought to create gods of men, and thereafter the princes and kings of nations were worshipped as gods. So what are we talking about here? That at a certain point they started worshiping men as gods, and they're carrying them on their shoulders and through the staves or whatever it is. And it makes me wonder about that now. We don't see Abraham doing it, right? We don't see Jacob doing it. We don't see Isaac doing it. Noah, Enoch. It makes you wonder, because we just read they just pulled an Apis bull. They just pulled a bull of Apis. Oh, man. Okay, cool, Sister Rhonda. Yeah, I don't know what happened. It cut. But pull it back on. Remember, it talked about they did the Apis bull, basically out of being in Egypt. And sure enough, they come carrying the Ark of the Covenant the same way the Egyptians did. So it just kind of makes you wonder about stuff like that. You know what I mean? Let me see. Where we at? Let me see. Just kind of makes you wonder about this stuff. About where this stuff comes from. Is it really from the Most High, or is it the line can describe some of these priests that have been, how do you say it? I don't want to call it Hellenized, but have been paganized. You see what I'm saying? Because we just read they come out of Egypt and they bring a
Well, enjoy your house.
and I gave
Could help you save on homeowners and renters insurance. My goal is better. He's more dangerous. The only thing he can hide is if I die too. Sweetheart. You didn't tell me the handsome doctor was coming. Looks like the place was bombed. Lieutenant Governor requested you come and be right there. We have to go out for the surgery finished. Those women were full of joy. Potentially totally malicious. This boss was intentional. They're claiming their son's death was murder. I didn't get this tall and it's hard to say what you're scared of on right there, quick. Find out.
Huh? Yeah, your volume kind of low, King.
My voice says I should talk to you. Well, you're not a suspect. Yes. Why have you become a court? Should have said court or chief record. You made it clear we all need to show up.
I see the dang on thing. I see the thing on mute.
I thought we'd be okay. He was a strong swimmer. And you're not.
Oh, let me see some.
I'm all right.
Let me see some.
That's not why I didn't go with it.
Can y'all hear me now? Give me a 7 if you can hear me. Oh man, the brother back on. Yeah, it got me on mute too. Yeah.
But yeah, my apologies. I gotta run. All right, but get with you, man. Hey, keep it up, man. Keep it up. I'm gonna share it. When I get back, I'm gonna try to share with as many groups as I can. Huh?
We're just I'ma just man, look here. We got.
I can't hear you.
I'ma call you.
It's on mute.
I'ma call you.
Okay. All right.